The game over pop-up filled my screen and I shut it without a second thought, complaining to the empty room that this game was unplayable without cheats. Ice Age was a niche, hardcore survival nightmare, and I'd been stuck in the first act for days. 100-fold boosts, infinite resources, instant kill mods, all too boring. Then a strange name on a mod listing site caught my eye, an item called Unstable Mutation. I told myself this one looked interesting, dragged the file into the mod manager and started the game. The startup music had barely begun when a grand mechanical voice synced itself to my mind. The Ice Age version update had finished and was about to enter open beta, and in 60 seconds every human on Blue Star between the ages of 16 and 50 would be dropped into the game. The voice called this a world perpetually shrouded in severe cold, where most creatures had gone extinct but life always found a way. After the game began, I would descend next to a bonfire, the fire of survival and civilization, and around it I had to build my territory if I wanted to survive in this cruel place. My screen lit up with the Ice Age logo. I didn't waste time wondering where the voice was coming from. I scrambled to a nearby box of clothes and started yanking on whatever I could find. The countdown ran out, and a magnificent voice rolled over me with a flood of white light, welcoming me to Ice Age. When my vision came back, I was standing in a world of ice and snow, thousands of miles frozen, 10,000 miles drifting white. The cold cut through me at once, and I tightened the cotton coat, telling myself it was a blessing my family kept so few clothes. I turned and found the source of life behind me, a crackling bonfire, and the moment my eyes settled on it, a prompt appeared. Burning bonfire, level 1. It warmed everything inside a 10-meter radius by 10 to 20 degrees, ate 1 wood every 10 minutes, and needed 5 stone to upgrade. A newbie guide followed. Day and night existed in this world. The temperature would drop drastically after dark. A 7-day protection period was now active. Wild creatures couldn't enter the bonfire's area while protection lasted. Supplies waited in my territory storage box. And I should repair the Lord's cabin as soon as possible because only then would the Lord panel unlock. Both the bonfire's behavior and the guide were exactly the same as the closed beta I'd grinded for days. Ice Age had been a brutal game on a screen, and now every Blue Star adult had been dropped inside it. Still, I tugged at my coat and told myself I had a slight advantage from the cotton coat alone, and a version update might have lowered the difficulty. Inside the wooden box I found a stone axe, an iron pot, an iron pickaxe, and 3 units of food. The closed beta had handed out 10. I complained that the update had only made things harder, then started hauling scattered stones into the box. Less than 6 hours of light remained, and if the cabin wasn't repaired before nightfall, the temperature drop would do me in even with the coat. The stones were heavy, and if the transmigration hadn't quietly fixed my old desk-worn back, it would have given out long before I finished. Half an hour later, I dragged 25 units in. Repairing the cabin needed 15 stone and 20 wood, and the forest at 50 meters from the bonfire, meaning runs in negative 35 degrees Celsius. Most newbies would stockpile stone, dash for wood, and slap the cabin together. I'd played this game, so I dumped the collected stones into the bonfire instead. A few minutes later, it had reached level 2. Coverage doubled to 20 meters, warming up to 15 through 25 degrees, and constant temperature added in, 15 minutes by the fire buying 10 minutes of warmth after I left it. I waited by the fire until a flame mark appeared on the back of my hand, then pushed through the deep snow with the stone axe, the 50-meter trek taking nearly 30 seconds. The trees were slender, and 7 or 8 swings dropped one and converted it into a unit of wood. 10 minutes in, the flame mark dissipated and the cold sliced through my coat into my organs. I hissed and trudged back to refresh the buff. 3 round trips later, I had everything I needed, and on the last leg I laid 2 pieces of wood side by side, piled loose stones on top, and pushed the makeshift sled back to camp. I triggered the cabin's repair. A hammer icon flickered above it, and wood and stone floated out of the storage box to merge into the structure. 10 minutes. The system didn't need me, so I melted snow in the iron pot over the fire and drank it. Water wasn't a problem. Food was, and 3 units would last half a day under this kind of work. I rubbed my stomach and told myself to cross that bridge when I got to it. Maybe a wild rabbit would run into a tree. I cast the anxiety aside and waited. A few minutes later, the cabin stood repaired in the snow. Lord panel unlocked. As the first survivor in this area to become a Lord, an exquisite hand crossbow, green exquisite hand crossbow, green excellent quality, attack 15 through 27, 3-second firing interval, with a special effect that auto-generated 1 bolt every 10 minutes up to a maximum of 5. The remarks said even a fool could operate it. I aimed at a tree tens of meters out and pulled the trigger. The bolt embedded itself more than halfway into the trunk. Tomorrow's food source had just been confirmed. The Lord panel had Lord information, territory management, and chat channel. My information read Gang U, Blue Star Human Race, Level 1, Profession Lord, Strength 3, Agility 4, Spirit 5, Constitution 4, Health 120, Mana 100, Talent none. Current temperature negative 35.7. I caught on the talent line. That field hadn't existed in the closed beta. I closed the panel, opened it again, still nothing, and felt my vision darken. Then a chime and a voice in my ear. A modifying module was loading. Then loading had failed. World parameters were synchronizing. The module was reloading. And finally it had successfully loaded, and my personal talent, Unstable Mutation, had been activated. The description told me my items would all undergo unstable mutation with unknown direction and effect, but always tied to the pre-mutation state. The voice kept repeating data modification was failing and retrying. The only thing my brain registered was that the cheat had finally arrived. I wasn't a chosen son or a resourceful genius, just an ordinary citizen of Dragon Country, and even with closed beta experience I wouldn't have bet on making it to the end. I told the talent silently to bring it on. I had a pot, an axe, and a crossbow. The stone axe was the natural pick. Snowballing was the priority, but the moment I focused on it, the chant in my ear shifted and told me the next mutation would no longer be limited to items. A line of almost ethereal text appeared at the end of my talent description. Cause any existence to undergo a positive mutation once. Remaining uses 1. Any existence. The axe and crossbow weren't worthy of a guaranteed positive mutation. The two real candidates were myself and the cabin in front of me, and I wasn't ready to stop being human. As the small text faded, I pointed the talent at the Lord's cabin. Today's mutation count dropped to 0, and the system reported that my Lord's cabin had mutated into a World Tree Sapling, that the territory's buildable list had expanded, and that my professional skill Lord's power was taking effect, raising all attributes by 10%. I was overjoyed. The legends called the World Tree's leaves whole worlds, and its roots the end of the universe. The little 10-meter sapling with 2 suffixes obviously didn't carry that kind of weight, but Lord's power had jumped to 10% already, and in the closed beta a Tier 3 Lord's mansion with full builds and 100 residents had only ever pushed that bonus to around 20%. Even with 2 suffixes, this thing more than lived up to its name. The construction list had a fresh layer under the human race basics: Pullman hut, blacksmith shop, lumber mill, mining plant, and beneath that an elf race tree from Tier 1 up to Tier 3, all of it unlocked from the start. My territory was Tier 1, but the World Tree Sapling had given me a free pass past tier restrictions. Even with the bonus only on elf buildings, the dimensionality reduction strike was obscene. I clicked the only Tier 3, Moonlight Forest, which could randomly recruit a hero-level unit, took 8 square meters in 72 hours, and called for 10,000 wood, 1,000 stone, 50 liters of moonspring water, 10,000 natural energy, and 10 power crystals. Power crystals dropped from powerful transcendent creatures. Moonspring water tied to the moonwell, and the answer to natural energy poured straight into my head. Moonwells produced it, and little fairies entwined with plants produced it too. The territory traits unrolled in my mind. I could build natural-type structures up to Tier 3, every one with bonus effects, output of natural buildings and plants up 100%, construction and growth speed 300, population cap doubled to 50, and scaling with the World Tree's level. And a little fairy would naturally be born in my territory after a stretch of time. A green fruit was already forming on a branch overhead, set to ripen into an elf by morning, faster if I spent natural energy. An hour into the panel, and only 4 out of 10,000 in my area had unlocked their lords. The World Channel said over 1 million had joined, putting roughly 4 billion alive across the planet, each capped at 1 speech a day. The chat scrolled past like a waterfall, and I could barely catch the highlighted lines, the privilege of the first lord in each region. Andre joked that a mere negative 30 degrees hardly deserved the name Ice Age. Jang Gang laughed about being afraid of the cold and upgrading his bonfire first. Gang Yewa called everyone children of Blue Star and said we should unite. Dylan Zion roared something about a transcendent world. I shook my head. None of them were saying anything useful, and the truly ahead were keeping quiet. The World Channel was useless for now, but I'd hold my place since the highlighted speech privilege would matter later. Accelerating territory development was the only real answer. I picked up the axe and headed out of the bonfire's range. With Lord's powers 10% on me, my strength and frost resistance both ticked up, and within half an hour I had 30 wood and 10 more stone, enough for either a Pullman hut or a moon well. Pullman huts recruited polar people, the territory's farmer laborers, for logging in stone and mining. Moon wells collected natural energy and let the World Tree spawn little fairies, who were also farmer units. I picked the moon well, dropped it on a random patch of outskirts, and told myself I could always tear it down later. The plot lit up emerald. The snow melted, vines twisted up from the warming ground, and 8 minutes later a green moon well sat shimmering in the ice. The system told me my moon well had picked up Moon's blessing from the territory traits. Under moonlight, both the natural energy and the spring water doubled, and that spring water also healed injuries and restored stamina. 2/3 of every day in this world was night, so the well's output more than doubled across the day, and the base spring water hadn't even had a healing effect to begin with. This wasn't a moon well, it was a money tree. If wells in the same area didn't choke each other's output, I'd have plastered the territory in them right then. The accumulation was slow, so I refreshed the buff and went back out for stone. Little fairies could collect rock too, but their efficiency on it was awful, so I played the complementary advantage angle. The 20-slot backpack from the Lord panel made stone hauling much easier than logging. 2 hours and 56 minutes from nightfall, with 2 natural energy and 42 stone in the box, I called on the world tree to create a little fairy. A leaf drifted down and turned into a green orb of light. Little fairy elf race, level 1. 1 population, with 2 skills, nature entangle to weave with plants for wood and natural energy without harming them, and self-destruct, an angry burst dealing pure damage equal to its level with matching mana destruction. I let it entangle with the world tree, which kept it safe, and let it produce 2 natural energy and 50 wood per day, double the rate of an ordinary tree, even with 99% of the world tree's energy going into the territory traits. Little fairies didn't rest, didn't eat human food, and the natural energy they generated was already net of their own consumption. A cold gust ran through me, the temperature already negative 38.2, and I worried about where I'd sleep now that the Lord's cabin was a tree. Then I remembered the tree hole on the elf list. A space opened inside a tree for elves to rest. The world tree was, technically, a tree. I opened a tree hole inside one of its branches, stepped in, and the howling cold cut out instantly, the inside at 12 degrees. A real Lord's cabin would have eaten serious wood and stone on a fireplace for the same warmth. I didn't linger, there were stones to gather. A flicker of white shadow slipped past as I exited the tree hole. I joked that maybe a rabbit really had run into a tree, but my eyes locked on it and the system pulled up the data. Snowfield Wolf, Beast Race, Level 3, Strength 6, Agility 8, Constitution 5, Spirit 4, Health 150, Mana 80, Talent Extreme Cold Physique, Skills Howl and Pounce. The wolf saw me at the same moment, a flicker of hunger in its eyes, but it could only pace the edge of the territory. It had already tried to push in once and earned a broken head from the novice protection. I wasn't worried. With Lord's power on, my attributes weren't far off the wolf's, and I had the hand crossbow. Meat was on the menu for dinner. I tucked the crossbow behind my back and walked toward it slowly. The first shot had to land. 10 meters, 8, 7. I drew, aimed, and pulled the trigger in one motion. The wolf's instincts caught the danger, and it dodged, but not fast enough, and the bolt landed in its collarbone instead of an eye. It glared, turned, and tried to leave, but I wasn't about to let a grudging prey escape. I put a second bolt straight into its lower back, the soft spine of even a transcendent wolf, and it crashed into the snow. No kill ping yet, so I sent a third bolt through its eye socket, and it went still. The prompts arrived in a series. Killed Snowfield Wolf at level 3, gained 30 experience, obtained 1 market blueprint as the guaranteed first kill drop, and as the first survivor in this area to kill a wild creature I received a Frostwolf Cavalry recruitment scroll. The corpse marked itself harvestable, and a flash of white light later I had 1 perfect snow wolf pelt of white common quality, 18 kgs of fresh wolf meat, and 1 sharp wolf fang for forging daggers or arrows. I complained that the harvesting fee was steep, but skinning the thing myself would have taken hours and ruined the pelt. The market blueprint let me build a market for cross-space trading inside my own area at Tier 1, with a handling fee on every transaction. I shelved the build since no one nearby could kill wild monsters yet, or had useful resources to trade. The Frostwolf Cavalry recruitment scroll was the real highlight. Green excellent quality, level 3 common template, and excellent aptitude, initial loyalty, 60, 2 population, and 5 food a day. Recruitment scrolls were 1 of 3 combat unit sources alongside training buildings and subdued natives, rarest outside the novice period. Frostwolf Cavalry was Orc Arms, a relatively powerful race. Combat power came from level, template, and race. Templates rising common through elite to hero. Aptitudes from common up through mythical setting each unit's level cap. Survivors like me weren't aptitude capped, only tier capped, and Tier 1 let residents reach level 10 at most. I didn't crack the scroll. Less than 2 hours of daylight remained. I wasn't planning to range far, and a combat creature would burn food overnight. There was also the second reason, my talent. I hadn't decided whether tomorrow's mutation should land on the scroll. Back at camp, I tossed my spoils into the storage box and dropped by the fire, the aftermath of the kill catching up with me. 3 crossbow shots, a dead wolf, and my heart was still hammering. Blood gushing from a wound, the wail of a dying animal. None of it had been on a screen this time. I told myself out loud that a lord could not afford to be the kind of leader who couldn't fight himself. This was reality, and anything that could threaten the territory could come straight for me. Night fell. The world went silent except for the bonfire's crackle. I sat by the fire roasting wolf meat in the iron pot, 6 in the evening and pitch black already, and I was starving. The construction list had kitchens and stoves, but I'd skipped them to save wood. 1 pot, a handful of snow, a piece of meat, enough. The aroma rose, fat sizzled, and my mouth watered before I'd even bitten in. Wolf meat without seasoning wasn't really delicious, but thinking of the chat channel masses crying for food made every bite better. I scrolled the channel as I ate, people begging for food and water, a back and forth about whether melted snow was safe to drink given the bacteria, someone trapped by a tiger blocking their door, and someone else recommending a slide tackle as the answer. A player flagged for prolonged low-temperature work and shouting for a doctor. And at the bottom of the noise, a quiet voice sharing the trick that an upgraded bonfire in 15 minutes by it bought a 10-minute warmth buff. Night had pinned everyone in place, nearly 9,000 survivors in the area leaning on each other's company. The 1,000+ who hadn't even unlocked their Lord's panel, I could only wish good luck. The temperature outside had crept toward -50. Even with the fire and a thick wolf hide draped over my shoulders, I felt the bite of it. The people without cabins and without upgraded fires were finished. The first night, the elimination rate, 10%. Eliminating 1,000 sounded small until you applied it to 4 billion teleported humans, 400 million dead in a night. I had no room to mourn them. In this game, I was just an ant, just as powerless to control my own destiny. Someone in the world channel was already moving fast. Markets built and trades closed. The advice rolled in: kill any wild monster, even level 1, and earn a market blueprint real-time cross-based trading at a 5% handling fee. Counter comments fired back that the principle was easy and the killing was hard, and that even with the blueprint in hand, wood was the bottleneck. Someone speculated the lucky few had stumbled onto treasure chests or abandoned resource points, and with 4 billion players, the smallest probabilities birthed lucky people. I told myself there was no rush. With the world tree sapling in the talent, my power would grow every day, steady and patient. 2 pieces of meat and some hot soup, and I leaned back, full and content. Back in the tree hole, the once empty room had picked up a wooden bed and a table and chairs, all crafted out of 2 units of wood combined. Otherworld nights offered no entertainment beyond chatting and huddling, so I curled up under the wolf hide, closed my eyes, and slept as soundly as I'd slept in years. The next morning, a system notification congratulated all survivors for surviving the first night and reminded me the protection period had 6 days and 8 hours left, expiring in the middle of the most dangerous night. The regional channel sat at 8,872, almost 200 fewer than the night before. Even with cabins, the unprepared had still gone under. The cries for help rolled in, but everyone was barely protecting themselves, and the only way to receive aid was a market, which meant you didn't need help anyway. It made me think of the old joke about the black dragon. I can't beat it. Use the black dragon set. I can't beat it. Scream. I rolled out of the tree hole into morning. The world tree had visibly grown overnight, dotted with green fluorescence. Before sleep, I'd given it a standing order: pour every drop of natural energy into making little fairies. The moon well had been spinning out 4 natural energy per hour all night. The existing fairies had been gathering more, and the population now read 37 out of 100. In the closed beta, even a smooth opening had given me 6 polar people by day 2. The comparison wasn't really fair anyway. Polar people worked 8 hours. Little fairies worked 24 straight without a single complaint. I could feel a faint background thought drifting off the swarm of them, something simple and bright about being lucky to stick with the Great Mother Tree. The box held 628 wood, more than enough, so I told the world tree to stop the all-fairy push. Population had to be planned. Resource speed mattered, but combat power did too, and pure farming wouldn't survive this environment. If your neighbor hoards grain, I hoard guns. My neighbor is my granary. Farming would be done, but guns would be had. Right on cue, my gun arrived. The elf fruit on the world tree's branch ripened and dropped to the ground. A crack opened in the fruit and a figure emerged. The system told me my territory had naturally given birth to a resident. Current population 42 out of 100. 5 population. I was delighted. Little fairies and polar people as farmer units took 1 slot each. Normal template combat units took 2. Elite grade, now I had a gun, and it was very hard. A clear, cold voice rang out from the woman kneeling in front of me, announcing herself as Aisha Silverwing reporting for duty. My will, the place where her sword pointed. She wore light armor with a short sword at her waist, a bow and arrows slung across the icy ground in front of me. I welcomed her to my territory and gently raised both hands to signal her up. What a beautiful ice queen, silver hair cascading over her shoulders, the characteristic pointed ears tucked into the fall of her hair. Pleasing as she was a combat unit, so I checked her panel. Elf Ranger Aisha Silverwing, Silver Moon Elf, Elite Template, Excellent Aptitude, Level 5, Loyalty 100, Strength 15, Agility 22, Constitution 12, Spirit 14, Health 360, Mana 280. Her talent was Moon's Blessing. All attributes increased by 20% under Moonlight. Her skills were Wind Step, 20 mana to summon a wind that wrapped her body and pushed her speed to its maximum tolerance with immunity to most physical damage. And Charged Shot, mana spent to empower the next attack at 20% per second of charge for up to 5 seconds at 10 mana per second. So strong. As an elite, she had high attributes and 2 skills, 1 offensive and 1 defensive. I had no doubt this female ranger could defeat 10 of me. Lucky then that she was my subordinate, the kind who would walk through fire for me. 100 loyalty. Even in the closed beta, I'd never had a subordinate over 90. I guessed it was because elves were directly created by the World Tree, and the World Tree's status among them might rank higher than the gods they worshipped, which made me, as the World Tree's master, an easy figure to follow. I told Aisha I would trouble her with reconnaissance work around the territory. She accepted with honor and turned to set off, and I called her back, took out the Frostwolf cavalry recruitment scroll from yesterday, and confessed to myself that with Aisha as a safeguard I no longer had qualms about what was about to happen. I had decided earlier that if today's elf came out powerful enough, I'd risk the recruitment scroll on a mutation. Before her arrival I'd been conflicted, since the talent's modified positive mutation still had unknown direction and effect. The scroll might not even remain a scroll. Even if it did, I might not get to use it today, and a mutation into something too strong meant I couldn't control it. With Aisha here, I'd take the gamble. Unstable mutation activated, the system announced. The Frostwolf cavalry recruitment scroll undergoing positive mutation, and the result came back as a werewolf recruitment scroll. Today's positive mutation count 0. Today's unstable mutation count 2. I almost lost my breath. Was this the talent's final ripple? 1 time versus 3 times a day was a qualitative change, even with the 2 extra rolls being random. I immediately started thinking how to use them. Pile them into the most useless trinkets I could find and let quantity create miracles. Calming down, I checked the new scroll. Werewolf Recruitment Scroll, Blue Excellent. Recruits 1 level 3 Elite Template Excellent Aptitude Werewolf Warrior. Initial loyalty 45 based on my strength, with a flagged warning that residents under 60 loyalty might be disobedient and difficult to command. Werewolves took 5 population and ate 10 food a day. I stroked my chin. My luck wasn't bad. A scroll wasn't necessarily better the stronger it was. Suitability mattered more, and a level 3 elite werewolf should be something Aisha could suppress without trouble. I confirmed the recruitment without hesitation. The scroll lifted out of my hand, hung suspended and dissolved into blue light. From inside the light, a figure at least 2 meters tall coalesced, broad and brutal, and when the light dispersed, a wolf-headed human-bodied being stood in the snow, only a piece of animal hide draped over its lower body. His green eyes locked on me as his claws slowly worked against each other in front of his chest. He growled at me to defeat him, or at least show him my courage, calling me a weak human, asking if I was the one who wanted his allegiance. Before I could even signal, Aisha was already moving. Wind wrapped her body and she flashed forward, the short sword unsheathed in silver light flashing as it pierced his right chest in a single blow. Another gust struck, a sweeping kick caught his balance, and he fell backward. She pressed forward, planted 1 foot heavily on his chest with her knees slightly bent, and her upper body angled forward, and told him in an unhurried tone that disrespecting the Lord was a minor punishment. But if there was a next time, it would be death. She withdrew the leg, bowed slightly to me, and said nothing more. Inside, I was delighted. Aisha was powerful in combat, decisive and clean in action, and most importantly, absolutely loyal. The werewolf wasn't a write-off either. He'd shouted and acted wild, but worship of the strong was a beastman trait, a style of theirs more than anything. With straightforward subordinates, the answer was simple. Beat them into submission. He climbed up from the ground, pulled the short sword out of his chest, threw it onto the ground, and bowed slightly to me as Fenrir Claw, reporting for duty. I told Fenrir to pick the sword up and wipe it clean. I'd briefly considered making him lick it, but for Aisha's sake I talked myself out of it. Fenrir bent down, picked up the sword, wiped it several times in the snow, and then knelt on one knee and presented it to me. I didn't take it right away because the system was already chiming in my ear. Werewolf Fenrir had been intimidated by a strong individual under my command. Loyalty up by 10 to 55. Then a second prompt. Due to my strong response, his loyalty had risen another 15 to 70. In 10 seconds, 6 words from me, and the unruly werewolf had submitted. Find the right method and loyalty turned out to be simple to grow. I took the short sword and handed it to Aisha, telling her movements had been very swift. She thanked me for the praise as she sheathed it. I turned my gaze back to Fenrir, the wound on his right chest already showing signs of healing, his talent at work. Werewolf Fenrir Broken Claw, Beastman, Werewolf, Elite Template, Excellent Aptitude, Level 3, Loyalty 70, Strength 12, Agility 15, Constitution 17, Spirit 8, Health 510, Mana 160, Talent, Self-Healing, the werewolf race's significant regeneration. Skills, Summon Wolf, 2 same-level snowfield wolves to fight for him each day. Permanent existence with a cap of 2 at any time. Fed but not occupying territory population. Wolf Transformation, activating the wolf bloodline to embrace his wildness. All attributes up 50%, and gaining the ability of Critical Strike, with Wolf Transformation usable once daily and lasting 30 minutes. Critical Strike was a chance on attack to trigger a mysterious power buff for 180% damage. Honestly, Fenrir was a bit wild, but he had real strength and elite units really did have tricks up their sleeves. Looking at his skills, I changed my plan. He was actually better suited as a scout than Aisha. I told Fenrir to call out his companions and take charge of reconnaissance near the territory, and Aisha to follow me and be responsible for my safety. Both spoke in unison and accepted. Fenrir threw his head back, howled, and 2 snowfield wolves appeared out of thin air beside him. Attributes and skills not far off from the one I'd killed yesterday. I stepped forward and stroked the fur on a wolf's back, smooth as silk. and smiled while privately wondering whether killing these two would still drop experience and harvest items. A bad thought, but only a thought, and not one I was going to act on. Fenrir soothed the slightly startled wolves and asked permission to depart. I told him not to rush, asked Aisha to prepare breakfast, and told him to fill his stomach first. I asked them whether snowfield wolf meat was acceptable as the ingredient. Both looked confused. Aisha said it was fine, and Fenrir said he couldn't live without meat. I stroked my chin and mused that different worlds and races had different concepts, that elves weren't only fruit eaters like in novels. Keeping Fenrir for a meal was about more than food. I understood the principle of giving a sweet treat after a slap. The treat, of course, wasn't this meal. I still had 2 uses left for my talent, and it was time to open the werewolf's eyes and remind him who'd created him. Unstable mutation activated. Target the stone axe. The system reported the axe randomly mutating into a goblin wood chipper. Today's positive mutation count 0. Today's unstable mutation count 1. I watched the stone axe vanish from my hand and reform as a 3-meter-tall machine in heavy cyberpunk style. 2 mechanical arms, one a cutting saw blade and the other a clawed grabber, with a tank-style track underneath for snow. True to its name, the thing was built for one purpose: logging. Goblin wood chipper model T130, green excellent, with the note that anyone who could skillfully operate this big toy could clear 100 wood units per hour. Durability 1000 of 1000, supported by an unknown renewable energy source. 100 units per hour. Little fairies were 50 per day. I was a bit speechless. I'd picked the stone axe to mutate because with my industrious fairies the territory would never lack wood. And now the storage box was about to overflow. Beside me, Fenrir was so shocked his eyes nearly fell out of his head, and the system informed me my miraculous performance had stunned him, his loyalty up by 10 to 80. He prostrated himself on the snow and begged forgiveness for his earlier rashness, calling my power as unfathomable as the ocean. Now he understood why that female elf, despite being so strong, was so obedient to a weak human, and his understanding of power had shifted. Aisha boiled wolf meat by the fire, and took the moment in two, far calmer than Fenrir, but with undeniable shock in her eyes. The world tree didn't create blank slates. It pulled wandering soul fragments into specific carriers and nurtured them into elves with a complete worldview. And what I had just done clearly exceeded the scope of hers. Ignoring both subordinates, I pressed on while my luck held. Unstable mutation activated. Target the exquisite hand crossbow. With Aisha and Fenrir around, the crossbow was practically useless, so it had to go. The system reported it randomly mutating into a Barrett sniper rifle. Today's positive mutation count 0, today's unstable mutation count 0. As the light dissipated, a 1.5-meter entirely black device sat in my hand, and I was certain it was exactly what I was thinking of. When the stone axe became a logging machine, I'd been only surprised, since this was a transcendent world and goblins were reasonable, but this art style was off. I wondered briefly if I had actually transmigrated at all, or whether my talent could pull items from Blue Star, or whether Barretts had originally existed in this world too, and if so, who had created them. A world where technology and transcendence coexisted maybe. Too many possibilities and not enough clues. I checked the panel for clues in the remarks. Barrett Sniper Rifle. Purple Transcendent. Attack power 333 through 444. Attack interval 2 seconds per shot. An alchemical technology product that gained additional effects from accessories. Current loaded 1 of 3. The accessory was Alepht's Enchanted Magazine. Capacity 6 rounds, generating 1 bullet every 4 hours. And once at full capacity, the bullets would receive enchantments in sequence from the list. Frost 50%, Armor Penetration 30, Magic Break 10, Holy Light 6, Blessing 3, and Instant Death 1. The remarks called it a relic from an unknown shattered era. My heart trembled. The world was clearly not as simple as I'd imagined. After a long silence, I came back to myself. These things were too far beyond me. The most important thing now was to survive, become stronger, and earn the qualification to explore the world. Aisha walked over gracefully holding a stone pot and announced that the food was ready, that the pot was too small to stew more than this much meat. I told Fenrir to eat and then immediately scout within a 3-kilometer radius and draw me a map, and he agreed and finished quickly and headed off with his 2 snowfield wolves. I returned to the fire and turned my mind to the next round of building. The territory was extremely imbalanced, wood overflowing, stone scarce. Little fairies needed a quarry to mine stone properly, and even then their efficiency on rock was poor. I told myself I'd build a Pullman hut and recruit a few polar people, since with 2 big food consumers already I could afford a few more mouths. The reserve held 12 stone, enough by a hair, and I dropped the Pullman hut on a random patch of outskirts. Construction would take 8 minutes, and breakfast wasn't ready, so I climbed into the cockpit of my new big toy and tried it out. The goblin tech was simple, and after a few attempts I was already proficient. I muttered with relief that I'd been worried the polar people wouldn't know how to operate it. Aisha called over that the food was ready, and a few minutes later both of us had eaten our fill. The Pullman hut finished. Recruiting polar people needed food rather than natural energy, so 2 units of wolf meat vanished from my pack, and 4 polar people filed out of the hut neatly. They were short and stout, faces buried in fur, wearing thick coats, well adapted to the ice. To my delight, they came with their own gear, each carrying a stone axe and an iron pickaxe. They were rowdy from the start, sniffing the meat and chattering about the smell, telling each other to keep quiet so I wouldn't decide they were hungry ghosts, and kick them out, then losing themselves over the giant tree and wondering aloud whether the elf in front of them was real. My head was already starting to ache. I told them to shut up first and scan the four. I told them to work hard and there would be plenty of meat, and they cheered that they would serve me. I pointed to the slightly stronger one the others were calling boss, and appointed him Polar People Captain, naming him G-Eel, with the others to follow as G-E, G-Sam, and G-Saw in order. I glanced at their panels, all level 1 with attributes around 5, and their original names had a Western lilt I couldn't be bothered to memorize, so I numbered them. The territory management panel already showed my new captain with a captain badge next to his avatar. As the territory grew, there would be more and more basic residents, and trying to convey every instruction point to point would kill me. With loyalty to anchor things I could delegate boldly. Today there was only one task, and I told G-Eel to move the stones from that area into the box. The other three asked when they could eat meat, and complained they were hungry, a familiar smell of wolf meat already in the air. I rubbed my forehead. I'd actually thought these polar people were simple-minded, but their cost-effectiveness wasn't even a single hair of a little fairies. I told them to get to work. Dinner when it got dark. An hour later, by the fire, I muttered that something smelled good. Don't let the polar people's panel attributes fool you. They didn't need to wait by the fire for 10 minutes for a buff before going to work. Truly a race named for the polar regions, and incredibly cold resistant. In 1 hour the four hadn't stopped, and the box already held 42 stone, 10 of them already used to start the quarry. Once the quarry stood up, the polar people wouldn't need to round-trip stones anymore, and efficiency would climb again. After an hour of high-intensity work, they were all back at the fire to rest. As I considered where to spend the 42 stone, Fenrir returned, transformed into a giant white wolf. A while ago, the system had pinged that my territory member Fenrir was under attack. I'd ignored it since outside risk was the entire point of the novice protection period, but within a mere 3-kilometer radius there was already an enemy that had forced him to use his ultimate move and flee. He covered ground in a flash in giant wolf form, arrived at the fire and reverted back to his wolf-headed human-bodied shape, dropping to one knee with a body covered in wounds, and his right arm bent and clearly fractured, telling me he had failed my trust. Half an hour had passed since the attack. With his self-healing, the previous chest wound had already closed in that span, and these injuries were still clearly severe. I asked him grimly what had happened. He reported that about 2 kilometers northwest of the territory he'd discovered a mine, and pulled a black, nondescript item from his pack and handed it to me. As for his wounds, he said he'd been ambushed by a large cat that could turn invisible while exploring the mine. If he hadn't been ambushed, he would not have been in such a sorry state, and his voice rose involuntarily on the words invisible and ambushed. I asked whether he was sure it wasn't just dark in the mine making visibility poor, and he said respectfully that he was sure. The werewolf clan had night vision, otherwise he wouldn't have ventured in so casually. I nodded, not disbelieving him, just surprised the world threw such a strange ability at me this early. Lucky he'd taken the hit instead of me. I asked how the cat was now, whether he'd managed to counterattack effectively, and he said his injuries had been too severe, and if it weren't for the toughness and self-healing of his wolf form and the cat declining to pursue him, as he retreated, he wouldn't have made it back. I asked how long he needed to fully recover, and he said his wounds were severe enough that without help half a day at least. I told Aisha to fetch some moonspring water. Fenrir was confused by that, having seen the moonwell in the territory but not understanding what I wanted with the water, briefly wondering if I was thirsty. Aisha returned with a wooden bowl of moonspring water. I handed it to him and told him to drink, and although he wasn't thirsty, his loyalty of 80 was enough that he tipped it back in one swallow. The next instant his eyes lit up and he exclaimed that this spring water could heal injuries. I told him to lead the way, and Aisha to come along too. He hesitated and asked whether it was too risky for me, since the cat could turn invisible, and offered to handle it with the elf ranger himself. I waved him off. After Barrett's mutation, in the right circumstances my strength wasn't behind either of theirs. From his description I guessed this tiger was the resource point's guardian, and wouldn't easily leave, and what he'd handed over was an iron ore. This was an underground iron mine, and I was determined to take it. He whispered that the mine was just ahead, still afraid of the thing inside, his wolf transformation already burned for the day. With the powerful elf ranger here, nothing should go wrong. I told Fenrir to go in first without explaining further, and he agreed and jumped into the pitch-black opening. Within a few minutes, a terrifying tiger's roar came up from below. They had engaged, no need to worry about a fresh ambush, and I took Aisha down with me. The mine wasn't large, and within 100 meters we found our target. Snow-white fur covered its entire body, faint black stripes appearing in places, and a pair of ice-blue eyes radiated killing intent. Excellent aptitude. Strength 29, Agility 25, Constitution 21, Spirit 23, Talent Shadow that pushed it into a continuous invisible state until it attacked, or was attacked. Skills Tiger Pounce and Intimidate, emitting a mighty roar that suppressed enemies on a spiritual level. An elite monster at level 8. I was very glad I'd brought everyone, since without Fenrir, without his wolf form plus Aisha, we wouldn't have reliably taken this thing down. Inside a dozen seconds, Fenrir was already completely suppressed and at a disadvantage. I no longer procrastinated, pulled out Barrett, set it on the ground, aimed and pulled the trigger. The shot rang out. Blood burst from the Shadow Tiger's right front paw. The impact threw its balance off, and Fenrir seized the moment to leave several more bloody marks across its body. The tiger adjusted, swept Fenrir off with its tail, and charged straight at me. The 100-meter distance vanishing in an instant, the fishy wind from its mouth close enough to feel. An arrow from Aisha's charged shot embedded itself in its chest, the impact halting its charge cold. Blood soaked the tiger's belly. It had shaken off Fenrir and rushed me because it had sensed fatal danger, and that danger was not just my Barrett but Aisha's full-power strike. After 4 seconds of charging, another shot cracked, and a blood-soaked hole opened front to back through the Shadow Tiger's head. Headshot. The struggling beast lost its life in an instant and collapsed. The system arrived, successfully killed Shadow Tiger, gained 240 experience, level up to 2. As the first survivor in this area to kill an elite creature, I received a random building blueprint of excellent quality and 1 Undying Tinder. Undying Tinder, something I hadn't heard of, but it sounded incredibly high class. I checked the panel. Item name, Immortal Tinder, special item, no grade, capable of building an eternal bonfire that allowed me to establish a second territory, with the note that only a bonfire built with Immortal Tinder could burn eternally during the severe winter. So it was for establishing a submine. I put it back. Sub-territories were normally something to consider only after a main territory bottlenecked. Then I checked the random building blueprint. It was random in name, but by the time it landed in my pack it had been fixed. Nursery building blueprint, green excellent. After use unlocks the building nursery, a building for planting crops. Footprint 18 square meters, requiring 100 wood, 80 stone, 5 iron, 2 primary fire elemental crystals, and 1 primary wood elemental crystal. My eyes lit up. With this, the territory had the foundation to transition to an agricultural civilization. Hunting was too unstable, eat 1 meal and starve the next, and once the territory grew to hundreds or thousands of residents, hunting alone wouldn't keep up. I wasn't short on wood or stone, this mine was iron, and only those 2 elemental crystals would take some effort. There was no rush since I had nothing to plant yet either, but as the thought formed I had an evil idea, wondering whether to mutate the Immortal Tinder or the nursery blueprint instead. Fenrir, dazed by the Shadow Tiger's beating, walked over to my side. He stared at the once invincible tiger, now a cold corpse, his mind clearly shaken, his understanding of my strength rewriting itself as not what it appeared, and his understanding of the elf rewriting too as more skilled with a bow than he thought. Aisha asked, more eagerly than usual, if she could take a look at the strange weapon, that thing as fast as lightning and arriving in an instant. I remembered then that she was skilled with a bow and had a charged shot skill, and my eyes lit up at the question of whether her charged shot could be applied to Barrett. I handed her the rifle and personally walked her through the operation. She asked if she could try it. I stroked my chin. 2 shots gone and 4 bullets left. 4 hours for a refill and 6 hours of daylight remaining. I told her to go ahead and try, but to remember not to point the muzzle at me. I was very much looking forward to seeing whether her skills carried over to firearms, because if they did, her combat power would jump another level. I crouched and began to harvest the Shadow Tiger's corpse, marked blue, and collectible 2 grades higher than yesterday's white quality wolf, and I was looking forward to what I'd find. The corpse was enveloped in white light, and after it dissipated, several blue glowing items appeared on the ground. The damn system still took a considerable cut, but there were surprises. 3 Shadow Tiger eggs, blue excellent, eggs of the elite Shadow Tiger that I could try to hatch, and the note added that if hatching failed, they tasted quite good boiled. I looked at the 3 basketball-sized eggs and muttered about what kind of tiger laid eggs, then waved my hand and put them away. I couldn't hatch eggs, and eating them would be simpler. With elves and werewolves already, I wasn't excited about raising tigers. Besides the eggs, the corpse coughed up the classic 3-piece set of meat, hide, and teeth. Shadow Tiger meat 128, green excellent, meat containing a trace of Shadow Tiger power that a master chef could turn into dishes with magical power. With the note that direct consumption also worked, slightly increasing resistance to low temperatures permanently, with multiple consumptions ineffective. 128 caddies. The ancients had not deceived us. Tigers were indeed objects of extreme yang, slightly increased resistance to cold. In a world this cold, where everyone could only survive by relying on bonfires, where I'd been out only half an hour and already nearly froze stiff, after losing the constant temperature buff, this was huge. In the early stage, time was money and everything else. Increased cold resistance equaled increased exploration efficiency, equaled increased outdoor gathering time, equaled a leading advantage. For some lords on the verge of freezing to death, this was a lifesaver. Moonspring water that healed injuries, tiger meat that increased cold resistance. The lords in my area were in luck. I planned to put both on the shelves, but to wait a bit so I wasn't simply giving away benefits. I didn't want to exploit my compatriots, but I also wasn't going to be a treasure-delivering boy. I checked the next item. Shadow Tiger Skin 2, Blue Excellent. Average appearance with several obvious holes, but easily fixable, with the note that an excellent tailor might produce surprises if it was sewn into clothing, and another option that some city lords like to tread on such valuable fur and one might sell to them. City. So this world did have indigenous civilizations. I lost myself in the description for a moment, then dismissed it. I would never actively contact indigenous forces capable of building cities. Great opportunity carried great risk. No need. I picked up the last item, a deep red blood, Shadow Tiger Essence Blood, Purple Transcendent, the source of the Shadow Tiger's power, with a chance to gain its abilities after consumption, with the friendly note to consider one's physique before consumption and to always pay attention to the Shadow Tiger's race. The second Transcendent item I'd obtained, but the moment I read the note I knew this one wasn't meant for me. After the level 2 boost from earlier, my physique had only barely climbed to 5. I wasn't going to keep the Essence Blood as a family heirloom or watch its mutation effects. That wasn't my style. Hoarding wouldn't make it multiply, and there would be plenty of good things later, and giving items to my subordinates worked just as well. I pursued immediate combat power. Mutation didn't care about pre-mutation attributes anyway. I told Fenrir he'd rendered meritorious service by clearing existing hidden dangers for the territory, and I bestowed the Essence Blood on him. I tossed the bottle and Fenrir scrambled to catch it, flustered, telling me it was too precious and that he had no way to repay me. He'd only joined less than a day ago. The system reported his loyalty up another 10 to 90 due to my trust. I told him his becoming stronger was the best repayment, and waved off the rest. He swore to absorb the power and inherit the Shadow Tiger's strength, fanatical, gripping the bottle tight. I told him to use it once we returned to the territory at night, where he'd be safe and undisturbed, and where digesting it would take time. I glanced over at Aisha, still fiddling with the Barrett, and wondered why her behavior already seemed more fanatical than someone with 100 loyalty. A gunshot interrupted the thought. Aisha said with quiet excitement that her ability could complement this weapon. I told her then it would be hers from now on, and walked her through the rifle's full details, including the bullet generation rate and the enchanted magazine. As a native, she couldn't read item info directly. She murmured questions about infinite bullets, special effects, and modules to add later, her usually calm face cracking with a small change. She asked if she could name the weapon. I told her to do as she wished. She looked at the rifle and said the continuously self-generating bullets were like Heaven's Grace, so let it be called Heaven's Grace. A good name, I told her. In her own heart, Aisha added the line that I was everything to her, that I was heaven, and this was a gift from heaven. After 30 minutes in the mine, the system reported the abandoned iron mine occupied. As the first survivor to occupy a resource point in this area, I'd received an excellent treasure chest blue. The reward for first place was generous. Truly, first step. The cold was getting hard to bear, so I didn't open the chest yet. Just wrapped up mine business. Iron mine, resource point, small, maximum reserves, 20,000 units. Daily regeneration, 100, with an iron ore factory buildable here for personnel extraction. Reading the info, I was puzzled. The polar people were cold resistant, but couldn't stand here mining indefinitely. Was this point only for viewing? 2 kilometers from my territory, how many bonfire levels would I need to cover it? Then I remembered that in the closed beta, occupying a point automatically generated a campfire. At my command, the group spread out, and a few minutes later, Fenrir found an extinguished campfire at the mine's center. Relightable with wood, not upgradable, coverage only the resource point size. I tossed in wood. The flames ignited. I peeled off my soaking sneakers and let the fire bring my frozen red feet back to life. I told Fenrir to head back and bring 2 polar people over to mine. Many buildings needed iron. With the fire's warmth on me, I checked the rewards, opened the chest, and the system reported the contents. Ice Crystal Fruit Tree 1, Miniature Thermostatic Box 1, Medical Kit 1. The green inside the chest was the sapling. Ice Crystal Fruit Tree, green excellent, transplantable into my territory. Low planting requirements, easy to grow, fast growth, and high yield. The nursery had to move up the agenda. Fast growth and high yield could ease a lot of food pressure. Next item, Miniature Thermostatic Box, white common, dimensions 0.3 by 0.3 by 0.2 cubic meters. Capable of maintaining the inside at 0 through 5 degrees Celsius. Perhaps useful for preserving plant seeds or hatching eggs, with a note that it was too small and might have a miraculous effect combined with a shrinking lamp. The moment I saw it, I pulled out a Shadow Tiger egg, measured it, and successfully fitted into the box. The green indicator lit up after the box closed, and I changed my mind. Raising ordinary tigers in a transcendent world might not be interesting, but a white tiger, Shadow Tiger that could turn invisible? Raise it. Must raise it. The medical kit glowed white and blue and felt like the chest's highlight despite the bland name. Medical kit, blue excellent. Basic medical tools including bandage 3, adrenaline injector 3, first aid potion 1, with the note that I could pull 3 rolls of bandage every day. The style felt suspiciously similar to Barrett, another relic from some shattered era. The bandages were less impressive. White common plain bandages that stopped bleeding and sped recovery. 5 uses per roll. Flesh and blood only with diminishing returns. For most lords, the kit's biggest value was a steady drip of medical resources. Severe wounds becoming minor and near death becoming severe. Roughly 15 lives saved per day. Not as useful for me, Moonspring water already outclassed bandages. The adrenaline injector was greener and more interesting. Green excellent. After use it pushed the user into an excited state with movement. Attack and cast speed up by 20% for 30 seconds, with the cheerful note that the user just had to go for it and leave the rest to adrenaline. The first aid potion was the real prize. Blue excellent dispels most abnormal statuses and restores 50% max health, called a second life. I tucked it carefully into my pack, hoping it would rot there and never see use. If I absolutely had to use it, I muttered, please don't let it be on me. With nothing else to do, I took Aisha and walked the mine's corners looking for overlooked spoils. The relit fire opened up the space, and the search turned up scattered iron ores in the corners, 18 units in total. I'd already occupied the mine, but every unit I picked up free saved an hour of someone's effort. By the time I'd thoroughly scoured every corner, Fenrir arrived with 2 polar people. I told them to build a mining camp here, and then mine with all their might, told Fenrir to stay and protect them, and bring them back to the territory for dinner before nightfall, and took Aisha home. In my absence, the territory had quietly piled up wood and stone. Time for a wave of construction. The books read 728 wood, 58 stone, 18 iron ore, 3 wolf meat, 128 tiger meat. With surplus food, I could recruit more residents. The market would go up, the bonfire would upgrade, blacksmith and tailor both, plus an ore processing plant. Standing in front of the poleman hut, I offered 2 wolf meat and 4 more polar people filed out. I sent 2 to gather stone and 2 to basic structures, and put Aisha on Fenrir's exploration since his 2 snowfield wolves had died heroically. Then I noticed I was the only idle person in camp. I told myself overall coordination was also energy consuming and let it pass. I scrolled the chat. A day and a half since the global transmigration, and most still talking had accepted the new world. With most lords busy, the world channel was finally legible. Wix bragged about stumbling on an indigenous village naive enough that demonstrating the backpack got him slaves and food. Wang Wei gushed about walking 100 meters and finding a treasure chest. Satake Shio called Wang Wei a lucky man and complained his own chest had been guarded by a powerful creature. The regional channel dumped an avalanche of ads, faction building, and showing off. Blue Star Unity calls alerts about premium rabbit meat, a self-described Fortune 500 executive selling a guaranteed polar people management insight for 3 wood or stone, with replies asking money first or goods first. Cries for cotton clothes. A wounded lord begging for healing items. Someone snapping back that no one would give them up because they couldn't guarantee they wouldn't be wounded next. The wounded man insisting he just wanted to recover and keep hunting. I realized I'd underestimated the value of recovery items. The world had digitized survival but hadn't digitized the survivors. People still bled and broke. So I changed my mind, called 2 polar people over to help build the market, and decided to put it up first. I was kind-hearted and couldn't bear to see people suffer, but more importantly, the lords reckless enough to fight wild monsters and get hurt were the enterprising and pioneering ones. The kind I'd one day need working for me. I had to do logistics support. With 3 polar people on it, the market went up quickly, and the bonfire upgraded at the same time. After upgrade, the bonfire's heating capacity rose, the constant temperature buff lasted longer, and the most crucial change was the sheer expansion of its range. A level 3 bonfire was the cap for a tier 1 territory, hovering a 40-meter radius. 40 meters sounded modest until that radius added up to a full 5,000 square meters, close to a standard football field. With my territory's population cap of 50, that came out to 100 square meters per resident. I wondered whether more area would let me build more moon wells, since mine carried a bonus, and the more the better. I checked the ambient temperature, around -10 near the fire, and thought about the -30 or 40 outside, and a strange warmth spread through me. I assigned the 3 polar people who just finished to gather more stone, then opened the market. Quite a few items were already listed, mostly basic resources, wood for stone and so on. No special materials, no blueprints, no consumables. The completed transactions page told another story. Blueprints had moved fast, listings closing within seconds. Good, I muttered. Those of you with blueprints, hide them well. Wait for me to make a move. Then, immediately, a blueprint appeared at the top of the market list. Light Wound Healing Potion Blueprint. Green excellent. After use crafts the Light Wound Healing Potion. Recipe calling for 1 moonlight grass, 100 milliliters of purified water, 2 wood, healing light wounds and relieving pain. Listed at 2,000 wood or stone, with a note welcoming PMs for blueprints or rare materials. I exclaimed at the outrageous price. Just a recipe, and I'd never even heard of moonlight grass. Buying it would mean it sat at the bottom of someone's chest. No sooner had I muttered that than it sold. The buyer was someone called Han Zheng, and I muttered an apologetic line in his direction that he might have bought it for nothing. I roughly scanned the market, full of confidence in my Moonspring water's competitiveness. Aside from what I'd given Fenrir, overnight the wells had accumulated 280 milliliters of healing Moonspring water, a shallow silver-gray shimmer pretty enough to look at. I pulled most of it out, poured it into a wooden bowl, and listed it for sale. Not all of it at once, of course, since at this stage these lords could be saved with a small sip. The market sold Moonspring water in 20 milliliter units, so I divided the supply into 12 units, each priced at 200 wood, or 100 stone, or 30 units of meat, or 2 flame crystals, with a note welcoming PMs for special materials or high-quality blueprints and recipes. The pricing was deliberate, too expensive and other lords couldn't afford, or only the desperate could go all in, which would over-deplete them, like pulling roots when harvesting leeks. Too cheap was no good either, and too cheap would just attract scalpers, which my small handling fee couldn't stop. I listed 5 units to start. Meanwhile, in another well-developed territory, Han Zheng was riding high. He'd just snapped up the light wound healing potion recipe and felt like the chosen one. A protagonist template near his spawn, an abandoned logging camp, had given him 3 goblin wood chippers for free, so wood wasn't a problem. He'd killed his first monster, built a market, traded for useful resources, and now had a healing recipe in hand. Mass-producing these potions would let him reap the market. He searched the keyword bar, found 5 moonlight grass, and bought them all without haggling. A moment later, he had 5 bottles of potion in hand, listed them on the market at 300 basic resources, no wood, opened the regional chat and announced that someone had consigned healing items at the market. Good and cheap. Snapped them up. The chat fired back asking why he wasn't buying them himself, accusing him of praising his own wares, then erupted as someone confirmed the items, said the effect and price were awesome, and went for it. The next message tagged me as Brother Gang, asking if I had more stock, and to keep listing. Han Zheng closed the chat contentedly, told himself good things sold themselves and that he'd priced too low. He reopened the market to collect funds, and was puzzled to see not one of his potions had sold. He decided the buyers must be claiming he was out so they could keep them for themselves, then returned to the chat and watched the lord shouting that 1 sip and they were full health. Snowfield Wolf, yes, you come out and fight one-on-one. They tagged me again, please keep listing, and complained about a dead profiteer selling worse healing items at a higher price. Then someone PM'd me their conditions politely. Han Zheng belatedly realized he'd misunderstood. Another competitor had appeared. He wanted a price war, did I? He'd see what I could compete with. A moment later, he was looking at Moonspring water that had sold for 200 wood and cursing me as sick. Of course he wouldn't admit defeat. Know yourself and your enemy and never be defeated, scout the enemy first. He clicked into the Moonspring water listing I'd put up at the top as an advertisement, priced at 99,999 wood, and PM'd me asking whether I still had Moonspring water, that these brutes were snatching too fast, willing to pay 300 wood. Silence, no response. He gritted his teeth, decided nothing ventured, nothing gained, and pulled out a blueprint and sent it instead. Shortly after my 5 portions listed, system notifications started rolling in. My consigned Moonspring water had sold. I'd received 198 stone after fee. 5 portions cleared in less than 3 minutes. 3 buyers paying wood, 2 paying stone. At the same time, my private messages exploded into 99 unread. I opened a few and saw they were all meaningless junk, leeches, show-offs, freeloaders. Good thing I could set this up. I configured a keyword filter so only PMs offering special materials or blueprints came through. The remaining 7 portions of Moonspring water could wait, and I'd pick and choose in the evening. With plenty of stone now, I started large-scale construction. Tailor shop, blacksmith shop, kitchen, useful or not, build them all, rich and willful. The sewing shop completion ping made me a little teary. I could finally stop walking around in wet sneakers. I made 2 pairs of boots from a tiger hide, and to my surprise, the boots had attributes. Truly was a blue-grade excellent tiger hide. Tiger hide boots, green excellent, basic agility +1, special silent while running, a good pair of warm waterproof non-slip boots that the tailor's poor skill had failed to fully unlock. I put them on instantly, an instant warmth in my feet and a noticeable lightness through my body. The other pair was identical, and I called Aisha back from her exploration to put them on, recalling her in her light armor. The blacksmith shop and canteen finished in turn under the polar people hammering. A system ping told me an important PM had landed, and I was delighted, since with system alerts set, an important PM meant someone had sent me information about blue grade or above items, or specific elemental crystals. Han Zheng, offering an elementary elemental arrow tower blueprint, was willing to take a loss and trade it for all my remaining Moonspring water. I opened the blueprint. Elementary Elemental Arrow Tower Blueprint. Blue excellent. After use can construct an elementary elemental arrow tower with range 200 meters, attack 99 through 199. Durability 2000, with elemental strike adding 50% elemental damage when consuming an elemental crystal at roughly 50 hits per primary crystal. Footprint 15 square meters, requiring 200 wood, 80 stone, 5 iron and any 8 primary elemental crystals. Good building, just expensive, and likely needing a continuous crystal supply to unleash its maximum power. I replied that the item was good, but the timing wasn't right, and asked what use a defensive building was during the novice protection period. Han Jung was clearly monitoring. His reply came back instantly, insisting I could take the initiative, that with 200 meters of range I could lure wild monsters near the tower. I cut him off and offered 5 portions of moonspring water for it, considering myself serious. He told me I wasn't sincere and signed off without looking back. I shrugged. No problem. The building wasn't practical at this moment and I didn't need it. Another PM landed, this time from a lord with primary fire elemental crystals, the hard currency of magic buildings offering a 1-to-1 trade. I countered 2-to-1 and would take them all. The market had no pricing system for special resources yet, so transactions between us were casual. I told him to list 2 units of moonspring water designated for 4 primary fire elemental crystals. He was straightforward, the deal closed quickly, and 4 fire elemental crystals were in my pack. I needed only 1 primary wood elemental crystal more to build the nursery. That last crystal was harder to find. Elemental crystals were rare like iron ore and required mining, and the only mine I'd found was guarded by a high-level elite. Crystal veins were rarer than mines and would have stronger guardians. Lords couldn't get crystals on a large scale through mining yet. Only luck through chests or rewards. Still, with nearly 10,000 lords as the base, there were enough wood elemental crystals around, and I traded 1 moonspring water for 2 of them. Crystals in hand, I called a polar person and had him build the nursery near the world tree. On the empty ground next to the world tree sapling, the nursery took shape across 18 square meters. The snow receded, the topsoil glowed faintly green, and as I stepped inside, a wave of warmth rolled over me, the temperature close to 0. The nursery had a slight greenhouse effect, the description listing planting of basic plants with survival and harvest up 20% and an extremely small chance of mutation. The wood element crystal made it a natural type build, so the greenhouse effect was the territory trait at work. This left me with mixed feelings. I'd built the nursery for ice crystal fruit trees, which sounded like cold environment crops. Was a warm nursery suitable for them? But not planting in the nursery would have made it pointless. And then again, why did I think 0 was warm? And didn't I have a natural world tree? Surely a common plant wouldn't die. I planted it. I took out an ice crystal fruit, pushed the soft soil aside, and inserted the tree. The rest was up to time, and by tomorrow morning I'd know if it survived. Then unexpectedly, the tree I'd just planted started growing rapidly, as if it had been given hormones. The originally half-person tall stunted thing climbing to my chest. Ice crystal fruit tree, status mature, yield 12 ice crystal fruits daily, modified by territory characteristics and the nursery effect. A 300% growth rate, this exaggerated. Without the world tree's acceleration, it would only bear 3 fruits every 3 days. Not very impressive in the closed beta sense. As I thought, 6 young fruits had already formed on the tree. Maybe I'd taste an ice crystal fruit by dinner. Aisha returned to camp to report, her expression solemn, telling me we were being watched. She continued at my nod, that on her way back she'd found several suspicious figures outside the territory. Gray-robed and human-looking. She'd knocked them out and they were on the west side. I asked if she knew their origins. She said only that they were all in gray robes and looked like me, so they should be human. I told her to take me, and called the polar people to lend a hand. 2 gray-robed figures lay in the snow on the west side. The system gave me their identity. Undead believer gray robe. Race human undead. Normal template. Breeding excellent aptitude. Level 4. My pupils tightened. I knew undead believers. In the closed beta, they'd been the first act final boss. I muttered that I was supposed to still be in the novice protection period. Why were they targeting me? Undead believers could create and control undead. The thought of a flood of undead assaulting my territory the moment protection ended made me shudder. Damn it, lucky I'd found out in advance. Otherwise I wouldn't even know how I died. I gestured for the polar people to drag both into the territory and told Aisha to pry their mouths open. We had to find out their intentions. A basin of scalding hot water woke the 2 of them up. Before Aisha could even act, both revealed their intentions on their own, raving about disgusting natural aura and life aura, that elves should be swept into the dustbin of history, that the undead disaster would flatten everything, that all errors would be eliminated, that only death was eternal. The 2 believers were fanatical, completely unaware of their status as prisoners. After some struggle, they kept repeating the line about death being eternal, and gave nothing else. I told Aisha to kill them. Her short sword had just unsheathed when ghostly green flames erupted from the 2 believers, and incinerated them. Lucky for us, Aisha had earlier pulled a super simple map from one of their pockets, marking the believers' gathering place. I also saw the locations of many other lords on it, so the natives of this world had reactions and actions in response to all the lords arriving. Since it wasn't aimed at me alone, the situation wasn't too bad. But these believers carried strong hatred toward elves, and after the protection period ended, I'd take the most severe hit. I couldn't stay idle, I had to take the initiative, and Han Zheng's elemental arrow tower blueprint was best gotten too. The system reported that my subordinate Aisha had killed undead believer level 4, and I'd gained 10 experience. Self-immolation aside, the system had still credited the kill to her. When subordinates killed and the Lord stayed within range, the Lord still got a slice regardless of participation. Other subordinates only got experience based on their participation. As for natives, I wasn't clear. Another prompt arrived and Aisha's aura was noticeably stronger. Level up to 6. Not surprising, she'd contributed the most to the Shadow Tiger kill. Aisha said she'd mastered a new ability. My eyes lit up at the luck. Since most creatures' skills came from skill books, and self-taught skills were rare, mostly happening with high aptitude or peak tier residents at level 10 or 20. For her to learn a third skill at level 6 with excellent aptitude was incredibly lucky. Without waiting for her introduction, I opened her panel to check. Arrow of the Moon God, the panel told me, consumed 30 mana, made the fired arrow absolutely precise and guaranteed to hit, doubled damage during moonlit nights and doubled it again during full moons. A conceptual guarantee hit skill with no cooldown, plus quadruple damage on a full moon. I wondered whether her charged shot could combine with it, because if so, a full moon night would be 8 times damage. The thought was too beautiful to dwell on. The skill wasn't invincible. 30 mana and arrow was more than Aisha could really afford right now. I told her well done. She replied that it was my light shining upon her that had let the moon god's favor descend. I was startled and briefly thought, am I really that amazing? Then cast the thought aside since she was a subordinate at 100 loyalty. The kind I could send to her death with a single word. Workers in my old life used to say results came down to the leader leading them well. No need to take it seriously. I told Aisha to verify the map's accuracy, integrate it with the area Fenrir had explored, and draw a new one. Then I changed my mind and told her to wait. I'd come along. With danger close, I planned to accelerate. I'd use up the remaining tiger skin. I turned into the tailor shop and chose to sew a coat of shadow tiger hide. A few minutes later, a green glowing beast hide coat sat in my hand. Shadow robe, green excellent. Constitution +1, slightly reduces damage from physical blows. A good warm coat that the tailor admitted was a bit ugly. I put it on, then handed Aisha the cotton jacket and tiger boots I'd taken off, and told her to put them on. She took them and only put on the boots, holding the coat. She told me, almost apologetically, that the coat was too bulky and would severely affect her agility, and that she'd wear it when she rested. Suit yourself, I said. Although the coat was just sewn beast hide and had no filling, it was unusually warm. With the boots and coat together, I figured my time active in the wilderness could stretch significantly. Before leaving, I gave G.Il instructions. The territory's construction and gathering work were now entirely under his charge. The main task this afternoon was to build and gather stones, and if anyone met an enemy during gathering, they had to return to the territory immediately. Safety first. G.Il was so moved by my care that he was almost teary, although his loyalty didn't increase. After 80, every single point becomes very difficult. We headed north. With the new gear, my performance in the wilderness was clearly stronger, the two of us covering 3 to 4 kilometers in half an hour through Arctic terrain. I didn't even shiver. I picked up scattered wood and stone along the way. Not that I was short on basics, but no one can resist the joy of picking up trash. And there was even a wood element crystal sitting there for the taking, the same crystal I'd previously struggled to trade for. Thanks to the generosity of nature, we reached the gathering place on the map. I looked at the endless expanse of white snow before me, unable to find any sign of human habitation. I pulled the map and compared, somewhat puzzled, asking how the hell this could be a gathering place, wondering if the map was problematic. Aisha softly told me someone was coming. 2 figures in gray robes appeared at the end of my vision, sneaking around. I pulled Aisha behind a small snowdrift to avoid being seen. The drift was very small. To stay hidden, the two of us huddled close, Aisha almost burrowing into my arms, a faint fragrance going straight into my nostrils. At that moment, I had no time for wandering thoughts. Most of my attention on the figures in front. The two squatted on the ground, fumbled around for a moment, and then suddenly disappeared into the icy wilderness. I looked down at Aisha in my arms and asked her if she'd seen clearly how they vanished. She shook her head. I gently moved her small hand from my clothes and went over to where they'd disappeared. A wooden board, almost covered by snow. The gathering place was underground. The believers had carved out a space, hidden by thick snow, hard to discover for anyone unsuspecting. Without the map and a convenient demonstration, I'd never have found it. But knowing it was here, I was now in a dilemma. My plan had been Aisha plus the rifle plus arrow of the moon god's guaranteed hit, gradually wearing down the camp from a distance. Underground, that was ruined. Rushing in blind might be suicide. Fire and flood were ruled out, and with the information I had, I couldn't find a clean answer. I checked the time, 3:18, less than 2 hours of light left, minus the half-hour return. Forget it. Tomorrow. The risk now outweighed the benefit. Tomorrow I'd mutate another item. The Barrett's bullets would have charged enchantments. Fenrir would be stronger after the essence blood. I'd build more moon wells and sell water tomorrow morning. I fixed the entrance location in memory and took Aisha away in another direction. Although only an hour of daylight remained, this place only got 8 hours total, so a seventh of the day was too much to waste. We wandered, perfecting the map and picking up junk. Lucky enough to encounter a snowfield wolf that Aisha dropped in a single arrow. 1 more hide, 20 more wolf meat. 27 minutes until dark, the system told me. I tightened the shadow tiger fur coat. 3 hours in the ice and my feeble 6 constitution body had had enough. I led Aisha to the mine. Resources at points couldn't go directly into the territory storage box, and without a rail system between mine and home, I was the human storage box, hauling back what the polar people had pulled all afternoon. We made it back just in time. 5:02 in the evening, ambient -53. After half a day of work, my territory was taking shape. What had been a lonely campfire in a world tree now had 4 moon wells, a blacksmith shop, a sewing shop, a cafeteria, 7 or 8 more buildings scattered around. A sense of pride welled up in me, more fulfilling than playing the game. While waiting for dinner, I went to the market, planning to sell some shadow tiger meat and moonspring water. I opened the long muted private messages and started reading. Someone offering to trade a toilet blueprint for 1 moonspring water. Someone calling out to Lord Gang about a water elemental crystal. Thanks to my filters, there weren't many. Only 8 messages. Only 1 blueprint. The rest basic resources beyond wood and stone. I agreed to all the trades. The territory's healing moonspring water was now completely used up. Fortunately, it was night and the 4 moon wells were already at work, so it would be replenished. It seemed I'd opened a bit too early. In 2 days, even I, with a cheat, had only managed 1 blueprint, let alone the others. If Hanjeong hadn't surfaced as a competitor, I'd probably have delayed even longer. I muttered to myself, wondering when these people would go out exploring and bring me back blueprints and materials, and then conveniently get hurt enough to need my moonspring water. Forget it, eat first. The scent of meat wafted dozens of meters into my nose. Dinner was ready. I called Jiil to bring the others to eat. After a few bites of shadow tiger meat, a warm current surged inside me, and the system reported I'd consumed shadow tiger meat and my cold resistance had increased. The prompt enlightened me. I quickly opened the regional channel to verify a guess. Lords were complaining about over-recruiting polar people. Crying. I wholeheartedly agreed. Me too. These people were too much to feed. I'd miscalculated, took down a snow rabbit easily yesterday and assumed wild game was common. Set up a 2-meal-a-day standard for the polar people, can't keep up. I basically explored within 500 meters and that was as far as it got. The constant temperature buff only lasted 20 minutes and going further the time I could stay was too short. Look at my snowfield wolf fur coat. You're treating the food welfare from the start as your ability. I had foresight and only recruited 2. Eating once a day, food now in the market for wood and stone. At 1 to 30 come quickly. Why don't you just rob us, you thieving scum? If you don't buy, get lost. Plenty of others want it, only 10 portions, first come first served. I'm going for it, brothers. Only when you're full do you have the strength to work. And polar people will rebel if hungry. Don't fight me for this damn world. I'm not playing. I'll be a well-fed ghost and reincarnate. My guess was correct. Without cold-resistant clothing, weak cold resistance severely restricted lords from venturing out. The food shortage was real too. Signs I'd overlooked. 1 snowfield wolf gave only 18 wolf meat. 4 polar people cost 2 food and ate a lot. And I could use little fairies, but other lords couldn't if they wanted speed. Even I'd only had enough after killing an elite. With over 100 pieces of shadow tiger meat in my pack, and the realization that it was both food and cold resistance, mine was a strategic resource. Market meat trade set at 25 to 30 units of basic materials. I had a better idea. List it. Any elemental crystal for 3 portions. Equipment blueprints starting at 10 portions with review. Skill books also at 10 portions blind. No basic materials. Only 100 portions listed. I didn't have enough to eat myself. If I weren't conquering the believers tomorrow with a chance of looting food, I wouldn't sell any at all. The moment my food hit the market, the regional channel exploded. Lord Gang Yu was making a move again. Can't afford it. Don't shout. It's food that increases cold resistance. Purchased. Didn't you say you couldn't afford it? I'm a college student. Lord Gang Yu gave it to me free with a portion of moonspring water. My exchange conditions required rare items. Blueprints, skill books, elemental crystals. So most were just shouting. The lords who could actually buy were already PMing me, including Hanjeong. Sincere trade, he wrote. 30 units of tiger meat for the elementary elemental arrow tower blueprint. The last line in our chat was clearly his own, that I wasn't sincere and shouldn't bother him. I sent it back. You're not sincere, please don't bother me. Hanjeong didn't bat an eye and muttered that this kid held a grudge. The tiger meat mattered to him. He prided himself on being the T0 player in the area, and he'd been out frequently today and felt the cold's constraints. Cold resistance had to be guaranteed for fast development. He replied that I'd priced blueprints at 10 to start. This was blue. 30 was his lowest, and without my warning about the building's construction requirements, he wouldn't have considered selling at all. Too lazy to read the long pitch, I let him stew. I opened the other PMs. Someone asked politely how much tiger meat the portable heat source blueprint was worth. Curious, I opened it. Portable heat source blueprint. Blue excellent. Crafts a mana item, portable heat source, requiring 1 mana stone, 3 iron, 1 primary fire elemental crystal. The item continuously emitted heat, with the developer's note calling it a groundbreaking invention that raised the user's perceived temperature by nearly 10 degrees in -30 environments, and consumed only 1 mana stone per day under full operation. The remarks called it an air conditioner in a transcendent world, a single user one not central. I was shocked. This thing's status in the Ice Age was like spiritual energy to the cultivation world. He hadn't named a price, asked me to. I tested with a question about whether the values matched. He replied that he knew the blueprint's value was far above food, but he'd only got it by luck and couldn't craft it himself. The market had no mana stone and the world channel hadn't heard of it. Blueprints for such necessities wouldn't stay rare for long, but this one was the first in this area, and most valuable. He'd been honest, the sooner this got crafted the better for everyone in the area, and he needed startup capital, with only Brother Gang in this area capable of using it. I knew then why he'd chosen to sell to me, but still marveled at his courage. Everyone understands a bird in the hand, not everyone can act on it. Even if a second or third blueprint surfaced later, as long as it wasn't one for everyone it kept value, and even click to craft items needed a progress bar. I offered 80 tiger meat plus a promise. In the future, as long as he provided the materials, I'd craft this item for him free. He'd spoken frankly, I trusted him, and the terms were generous on my end. He had incredible luck and was easy to talk to. A good relationship might pay later. I wasn't really losing either. 80 tiger meat for someone who'd never lacked food again, and tiger meat's cold resistance only worked on the first consumption per person anyway. He agreed. Happy cooperation both ways. The trade closed and I noted his name, Tan Chengu. I used the blueprint and continued chewing dinner. Hope I got mana stone soon, another task for tomorrow. Then I remembered Hanjong hanging. I opened the chat amused. My tiger meat was popular. He dropped from 30 to 20, a full third off, like swinging a dragon-slaying saber and hacking himself with it. I replied with 15, final price. In another well-developed territory, a young man with a gloomy expression typed out deal. He was Hanjong. After the trade, he looked at the meat and sighed. A loss was a loss, but at least he had it. Now he could go deeper into that ruin. Just wait, he thought at me. I'll earn it all back from you sooner or later. Tomorrow I'll make you beg for my potions. On my side, I quickly used the Arrow Tower blueprint. I had all the materials, but I wasn't building it now. My plan was to wait until the novice protection period was almost over. I'd used 95 units of tiger meat and still had budget. Looked through the remaining PMs for one more good item, and Fenrir's excited voice came in asking if he could absorb the essence blood now. I nodded and told him to go. His own safety mattered most. Don't force it. He had a fanatical look, swallowed the essence blood, and went off to refine it. While he worked, I kept reading PMs. With limited tiger meat, I could only choose the best of the best. After half an hour, my eyes lit up. Someone was offering a skill book. Chop skill book, white common. After use grants the free skill chop, 2 slashes instantly. 30 mana, 30-second cooldown. The seller asked 10 tiger meat. I bought it without hesitating. I didn't ask why he didn't use it as himself, because I wasn't planning to use it either. I was going to mutate it, slashes with my bare hands. What would I even slash with? Pick up a piece of wood and swing it like a sword maybe. This was a real world, and tiger hide could be draped over the body for warmth without sewing. I'd already used 2 pieces of wood as a sled for stones. The plan stayed the same. Mutate it tomorrow. A low growl from Fenrir, his aura growing stronger under the moonlight. He'd digested the essence blood, the system reporting that Werewolf Fenrir had successfully absorbed Shadow Tiger essence blood. Aptitude upgraded to excellent, comprehensive enhancement received. Fenrir, noticeably taller, knelt and swore to use the power to tear apart all enemies. I waved him up and called it the reward for his loyalty, then checked his attributes. Werewolf Fenrir Crippled Claw, Beastman Werewolf, Elite Template, Excellent Aptitude, Level 5, Loyalty 95, Strength 19, Agility 22, Constitution 24, Spirit 11, Health 730, Mana 220. Talent self-healing as before. Skills summon wolf, werewolf transformation, and a new wolf howl with critical strike attached to transformation. Summon wolf had upgraded to 2 shadow wolves of the same level per day. Wolf howl emitted a howl that boosted friendly basic attack by 10% and reduced enemies by 10% for 30 seconds. Doubled at night with a 1 hour per target cooldown. The compatibility between the Essence Blood and Fenrir was terrifying. Aptitude up a tier, level and attributes up a notch, and the biggest game was the skills. An almost perfect Shadow Tiger inheritance with his own ability system intact. Shadow Wolves inherited Shadow itself, invisible when not in combat, and a passive Corrosive Claws that weakened enemy defense and movement, easily 2 Snowfield Wolves apiece. Power had a price though. Shadow Wolves had much bigger appetites, which was why I hadn't let Fenrir summon them yet even with the skill refreshed. A cold gust hit, ambient -38 even by the fire, and it would be 60 or 70 below outside. I told GL to take the polar people back to the house, touch the big tree, and silently say the room number, 2 per room starting from 109. Fenrir got room 103. Aisha was to come with me. The polar people rushed into the tree hole space without looking back. They'd wanted rest for a long time. Fenrir glanced enviously at Aisha and quickly entered his own room, not daring to disturb my leisure. I had important business with Aisha. A touch on the world tree took us to room 100, a spacious area 3 tree holes linked together that served as both meeting room and training area. I told her to teach me some combat skills. She was stunned, not expecting the Lord had sought her for only this, then agreed and asked what I wished to learn. I'd already decided, archery. As someone who'd never killed a chicken in my previous life, growing up in an extremely peaceful environment, combat was honestly difficult. But in a cruel world, I had to bite the bullet. I wasn't a manipulator hiding behind a screen. The Lord's power profession's 4 free skill slots all said the Lord absolutely had to personally fight. I understood gradual progress, so ranged first, bow and rifle. Aisha began on the basics. Archery was nothing more than drawing the bow and shooting, but in reality there were many techniques: stance, force application, aiming, the art of physical and mental coordination. She was a skilled ranger and a good teacher, breaking essentials into digestible pieces. With a master personally correcting me, my archery became quite decent within a night. Within 10 meters, not every shot, but at least a 50% hit rate. Aisha's evaluation. I was the most talented human archer she'd ever met. As if reading my mind, Martin told me he only had elite level strength at the moment, that he'd need to reach level 31 for hero level strength, but believed under my leadership that day would come very soon. He glanced inadvertently at the world tree, Fenrir and Aisha as he said it. The system prompt arrived right after. Holy Priest Martin had officially joined my territory. Current population 55 out of 100. I didn't dwell on the system delay, I'd already finished his panel by the time it landed, but the quiet question of why his earlier holy light had dispelled my fatigue without a system ping remained. I asked Martin about it. He told me it was a variation of the holy light abilities application. I was stunned, listening to him. His abilities clearly weren't limited to the skills on his panel. Then I thought, this was normal. This wasn't a game. Like Aisha, whose archery and combat skill didn't appear in the skill bar either, which meant Martin's actual utility was far above a normal level 1 elite. The undead believers camp was a sure thing. I lifted my wooden bowl and offered Martin breakfast. He thanked me and said he was a bit hungry, but compared to me he'd rather try the other thing, his gaze on the ice crystal fruit tree in the nursery. I'd been so engrossed in archery practice the night before, I'd forgotten the fruit had ripened. I picked the 9 ripe ones, placed them on the table and gestured for Martin to take as he pleased. Ice crystal fruit was food, slightly enhancing cold resistance for a certain period. After consumption, another cold resistance food, but on a timer. I bit into one, tastes similar to apple, a cool sensation surging through my body afterward, the principle clearly different from tiger meat. Martin took only one, and slowly nibbled it, elegantly. I left him to it. Almost dawn, and I needed to prepare for departure at sunrise. Moonspring water needed to be put away first, then back on the shelves, and today's construction and gathering tasks had to be arranged. Plenty of small things, but quick. By 9, when dawn broke, I was done. I wanted a management talent more than ever. As the territory developed, these things would only multiply, and I wanted to be a hands-off boss. Back at the bonfire, the 3 going out were ready. I told Fenrir to call out his new companions. He nodded, let out a long howl, and 2 large mighty shadow wolves, completely black, appeared from the void. The wolves were close to the size of the shadow tiger I'd encountered before. Perfect for riding. The worry was the math. 2 wolves and 4 people. After a moment of thought, I made the call. As Lord, I needed a representative tool, and one of the wolves was for Aisha, the highest loyalty in the group. As I was about to hand it down, my eyes fell on G-Il climbing into the logging machine. I had it. Who said a logging machine could only log? The tracks, the comfortable cabin, a proper transport vehicle. I told Aisha I was sorry to make her squeeze with me. Told Fenrir and Martin one of them could ride the second wolf, and the other could drive the logging machine. I swore I wasn't being lustful for sharing a ride with Aisha. The werewolf Fenrir was robust enough that he could only ride alone or use the logging machine for transport, and Martin was new, a hero unit, not high loyalty, no bullying the newcomer. They agreed. Fenrir looked at Martin, signaling him to choose first. Although Fenrir couldn't see Martin's panel, he could feel the faint, deadly threat coming off him, and in this world strength was respected. Martin chose to ride a shadow wolf, surprisingly comfortable around creatures with shadow power for a holy priest. At dawn, we set off. Wolf claws scraped through the silent snow. The space on the wolf's back was cramped for 2. I could clearly feel the softness and warmth at my back, the natural fragrance lingering in Aisha's hair going straight into my nostrils, the cold wind blowing strands of black hair against my neck with a slight itch. Less than half an hour and we arrived near the undead believers' gathering place. I dismounted, expressionless, and put away the conspicuous logging machine. Fenrir, Martin, and I found cover, while Aisha took the 2 invisible shadow wolves to scout. Only Aisha and I knew the location. We couldn't possibly let the Lord go in person. Half an hour later, Aisha returned with the wolves. Fenrir conversed briefly with them and turned to me. The strongest in that camp was only at the peak of 0. I nodded, much more relaxed. Creatures under level 10 were 0 tier and 0 tier peak meant the strongest was only level 10. Without hesitation, tier 1, Fenrir alone would be enough. Go, I told him. Fenrir led the way, the others following close. Knowing the target's strength, the group's movements were much bolder, no concealment, and Fenrir directly pulled away the stone slab covering the underground space. A warm, humid air wafted out. Indigenous gathering places also had sources of fire then. I wondered briefly if it would be a so-called undying bonfire like ours. As I started to descend, a system prompt popped up. Novice protection period reminder. I was entering a dangerous area. The undead believers gathering place. Recommended challenge level 10. There was even a benefit like this. Seeing only 10, I slid down the ladder. 3 voices erupted at once as we landed, demanding who went there, calling out an enemy attack, and one of them practically gleeful that fresh material had been delivered to their doorstep. 3 gray-robed believers, looking like they'd been about to leave, the shouts particularly jarring in the silent underground space. Even my not-so-sharp hearing caught many footsteps approaching from afar. I told the group to finish this quickly. I drew the bow first, an arrow condensed from mana rapidly taking shape, released the grip and the arrow flew. The next instant, a phantom image formed beside me, replicating my movements at infinitely faster speed. Combo. 2 arrows shot out almost simultaneously and landed, screams ringing out and blood gushing from one of the gray-robed chests. One good thing about mana arrows was that they dissipated automatically after damage. No need for a blood trough, fully automatic bleeding. Fenrir followed close, twisting off another head with a single claw. Instant kill. Aisha was equally decisive, finishing off the believer I'd hit and slitting the throat of the last one. The system reported my subject Fenrir had killed undead believer level 4, 10 experience to me. The fight came and ended quickly. Martin didn't even need to move. Aisha and Fenrir's elite work was as expected. My own performance left Aisha amazed, exclaiming inwardly how terrifying my lord's adaptability was. She could clearly sense I had gradually adapted to combat, and a lord who'd never been exposed to combat before, who barely possessed killing intent, was perhaps just talented. I started licking corpses. 3 undead believers, humans, and the system didn't provide collection services for this type of creature. I stripped the gray robes off them, lest they suddenly self-immolate again. The robes were spoils of war. In the regional channel, many lords were begging for clothes and food. The bodies also held a few pieces of dried meat, nothing else. By the time I'd finished collecting, the reinforcements the believers had shouted for finally arrived. The leader was conspicuous, not only for the black robe but the staff he carried. A magic user. The system pulled his attributes. Undead believer black robe. Race human/undead. Ordinary template. Green excellent. Level 10. Skill undead revival. A level 10 creature. A peak 0 order existence, but ordinary template and not specialized in combat from his skill alone. None of us paid him much mind. Watching the believers approach, I told Martin the black robe was his, and Fenrir and Aisha to clear the grunts. I wanted to see Martin's strength. Although he had no overt attack skills, I understood Holy Light could damage undead, and these believers had clearly begun to transform. The gray-robed bodies I'd just stripped had been noticeably paler than normal humans. Martin acted. Holy Light condensed in his hand, and the next instant, a golden ray descended from the sky and landed on the black robe. The believer engulfed in holy light let out screams as wisps of black energy rose from his body. The next moment, the system reported he'd been killed by Martin. I was stunned. Martin was hero template but only level 1, and could only display elite strength. A single holy light healing across 9 levels had instantly killed him. I subconsciously reread the description. Holy light healing, instant cast, 100 mana, healing the target spirit times 5 health. Against undead instead dealing damage equal to spirit times 10. I hadn't misremembered. Even with double effect against undead, that was too exaggerated. Then I noticed the holy tome in Martin's hand for the first time. Not decoration, faintly flowing red light along its cover, an epic item. I looked down at the bow in my hand and sighed. The bow was Aisha's. Green quality, average power, with a decent special effect of consuming mana to condense arrows. By now, Aisha and Fenrir had engaged the rest. After completing my command, Martin closed his holy tome, unhurried, with no intention of buffing the others or rushing to kill more believers. Yet these believers were beings already turning into undead. This left me confused. Why didn't Martin show any urge to actively purify the shadow power or undead creatures he saw? Could it be that in this world holy light and undead were not actually diametrically opposed, but then the skill description clearly said holy light dealt massive damage to undead? Perhaps Martin was simply special. A moment later, the battle ended. My subject Fenrir killed undead believer Grey Robe level 4, 10 experience. My subject Aisha killed undead believer Grey Robe level 5, 12 experience. My level rose, current level 3. Not a surprise. With 3 high-level elites leading the way, I was like a boss in an online party, lying back and enjoying the ride. and the first 10 levels needed little experience. Both factors contributed to my rocket leveling. Martin, oddly, whose level was even lower than mine, stayed at level 1 after solo killing a level 10 black robe. I could only attribute it to the stronger the template, the more experience required. I cleaned up the battlefield. 8 gray-robed believers plus the black robe, each providing a gray robe and a weapon. The robes were decent cotton coats, no abilities, not magical. The weapons were plain, but something was better than nothing. Plenty of lords were bare-handed. I'd keep a few pieces for the polar people for self-defense, and dump the rest as welfare on the market. The black robe left me a staff, a black robe, a book, a map, and a bag of coins. I toyed with the plain staff, my mind already on the next thing. A staff, a form of combo. Combo's description said simply attack, the manifestation being to condense a phantom that replicated my attack. So could spells also combo. I felt I'd found a combat style. My profession was Lord and I couldn't change that, but who said a Lord couldn't learn spells? My panel clearly had mana and spirit. Spells were high power, high consumption, long cooldowns. Perfect for combo. Combo was stable and controllable, passive but didn't auto-trigger on cooldown end. I could combo whenever I wanted, whatever I wanted. The Lord profession only granted 4 free skill slots, and combo already occupied 1, meaning I could only directly master 3 skills through the system. Fortunately, this was a real world and spells could be mastered through learning. The Lord profession's attributes were balanced. Every level up raised all attributes, and the trait Lord's power gave a percentage bonus too. I had the foundational attributes. Whether I could become a noble mage depended on talent. I asked Martin if I had any potential to master Holy Light. He was silent a moment, then smiled and said, "Only 3 kinds of people could master Holy Light. Those who believed in Holy Light, those who believed in the God of Light, or those with nearly pure hearts." I knew right away I had no chance. Holy Light wasn't that great anyway. I didn't want to be a support. I gnashed my teeth and looked at the rest of the loot. I took out the yellowed book, Militia Training Manual. White common through this manual, an ordinary person in my territory could be trained into a militia with combat capability, requiring coordination with the building militia training camp. To me, it was scrap metal. I tossed it into my pack. Training manuals plus training camps were the main path most lords used to acquire combat units, besides recruitment scrolls. But the militia rarely had aptitude above common, hard to break through to tier 1, and they had 2 destinations in my hands: sell or transmute. The militia was not entirely useless either, both soldiers and civilians, retaining gathering ability and capable of being further trained into higher tiers. I picked up the coin purse, coins clinking. 16 copper coins, the system told me. Common currency jointly minted by the 3 great empires in the northern continent. Copper to silver to gold, 10,000 to 100 to 1. Money. In any world with order, it played an extremely important role. I carefully put them back into the purse and stored it. Last was the map, similar to the one on the gray-robed believer earlier but more detailed, with new locations and information that I'd examine carefully later. The group moved forward through the narrow excavated tunnel. A moment later, we arrived in a brightly lit hall. I felt for the believers. They'd managed to dig out this much space more than 10 meters underground in extreme cold. In the vast center sat a huge bonfire, dying bonfire, level 3, with a note that due to the owner's demise it was about to extinguish, and that undying ember could keep it burning. So even natives relied on bonfires. Beyond the fire, a hellish tableau, a still-beating heart soaked in emerald liquid, broken bones, frozen corpse fragments. These believers had been conducting evil experiments here. As I prepared to scavenge, a harsh clanging sound of chains rang out. What was that? Were there others here? According to the Shadow Wolf intelligence, there were a dozen people, strongest at peak tier 0, accounted for between the black robe and the gray robes. The system prompt had called this a level 10 challenge though, so I relaxed and told the group to spread out and search. The resources in this place were quite abundant. I picked 13 iron ore, 26 meat, 112 bread, 42 arrow, 1 mithril, 3 primary undead crystal. Awesome, a huge haul. I had to discard a lot of junk to fit the supplies. A 20-slot backpack couldn't hold everything. The fix was simple: upgrade the territory to tier 2, and the system backpack would expand. I joined the search for the sound, drawn out and harsh, seemingly far yet near. The hall had only one narrow passage leading to the surface. Martin's voice came. It should be here, beneath a mural. Bone dragons covering sky and sun, skeletons across mountains and fields. He smelled a decaying scent behind it. I had no doubts, and gathered everyone, fumbling around the mural for a long time. Finally, I pressed a hidden mechanism and the mural slowly slid apart from the center, to both sides. As it opened, chilling aura emanated, and the already flickering bonfire behind us instantly extinguished, the entire space pitch black. As the mural fully opened, a light source behind it re-illuminated the underground space. The light came from a white stone. Holy Light Stone, purple transcendent, a stone imbued with rich holy light power, with a note the energy was about to be depleted. The light was dazzling, but most was being swallowed by a deep black hole nearby. As my gaze settled on the hole, a system prompt popped up. Unidirectional spatial rift. The other side led to the undead realm, currently suppressed by the holy lightstone and not yet opened, with a rift opening countdown of 92 hours. 3 days, 20 hours. I subconsciously checked the protection period's end time, also 92 hours. The big event after the protection ended would clearly be related to this rift. The chains rang out again. I moved to one side of the rift. Without the rift swallowing the light, I found the source immediately. Behind the rift hid a huge bloated humanoid figure. I just wanted to say, holy crap, so ugly. The monster looked like a haphazardly stitched mass of flesh, limbs disproportionate, clearly stitched together from organs of different species. Left arm short and thick, right arm long and slender. Left leg muscular, right leg thin and weak. The whole body covered in dense stitch lines weeping dark red blood. The most horrifying part was its split abdomen, where a human head sat, intestines and blood vessels visibly connected behind it. A small head sat atop a thick body, the neck almost invisible. The chain wrapped around its left arm trailed on the ground, dragging and chiming as it moved, while its right held a blood-stained cleaver. The system pulled its attributes. Stitched monster Pudge, level 15, undead, elite, excellent, strength 72, agility 37, constitution 98, Spirit 11, health 10,830, mana 220. Talent artificial being, max health up 100%, regen up 200%, with the note that terrifying vitality was the key to Pudge's survival. Skills hook, throwing a chain that entangled and dragged the first target it hit in front of Pudge. Toxic cloud, mist from rotten wounds that continuously damaged surroundings and itself and slowed targets, with self-damage halved. Flesh accumulation passive, each kill increased its attributes excluding spirit based on the creature's strength. Active, Cloak of Flesh aura blocking all damage from all sources at value. Constitution divided by 3, 3-second duration. Cooldown ? Devour, swallow killed targets and randomly gain one of their skills. With the note to become a part of me, my body. I was solemn. You could call this thing ugly, but you absolutely couldn't call it weak. 5-digit health, a suffocating block. Abnormal regen, forced displacement control. If Martin hadn't joined the team, I'd have turned around and left without a thought. But after watching Martin instant kill a level 10 with a single holy light healing, I wanted to try. Pudge didn't seem to have a strong desire to attack either. When I'd noticed it, it had glanced up at me and then made no other movement and lowered its head again. I wondered if this was why the protection didn't issue a special hint. This was a creature that wouldn't actively attack. I had Fenrir move closer to Pudge and pulled back to the entrance with Aisha and Martin. After some probing, the conclusion held, Pudge would not actively attack. Overjoyed, I drafted a simple battle plan, more like preparation than a plan since the situation could change in an instant. The seasoned team didn't need much direction. Martin kicked it off, gently flipping the red-black tome, and a golden chain appeared in midair and vanished into the 4 of us. I felt a faint, intangible connection to the others. Life chain links up to 5 targets. When any one took damage, it was shared by all linked targets, with damage reduced by 20% for the taking target, and no instant kills, triggering once per person, lasting 30 minutes with a 12-hour cooldown. Martin's talent. Super long duration, 20% damage reduction, sharing, and a one-time death immunity each. This was the confidence we had against the level 15 elite. Martin softly chanted. 3 holy lights appeared above their heads. Blessing of Courage, attack power and spell power up 50, max health and mana up 20%. Armor up 10. Martin and I stood at the entrance to watch. As an experienced gamer, I understood aggro mechanics. Bosses often had high aggro toward healers and supports, and although I didn't know if reality followed the same rules, it was better to be cautious. Pudge's chain was no joke. Fenrir and Aisha charged. Fenrir let out a roar, his body suddenly swelling, fur growing wild, sprawling on the ground as a mighty giant wolf. The pressure from Pudge was too great. Even with Life Chain and Blessing of Courage, Fenrir wasn't confident, and chose to activate his ultimate immediately. Aisha wielded her Heaven's Grace, her aura strengthening continuously. Charged shot. 1 second, 2, 3, 4. Fenrir, the giant wolf, shot out like a black shadow, sharp claws striking Pudge's exposed abdomen. A dull sound as if the paw had hit steel rather than flesh. The wolf changed expression and quickly retreated. 2 giant white bone hands materialized out of thin air and grabbed him. He couldn't move. I saw red light flicker in the eyes of the head on Pudge's abdomen, then the bone hands appeared. A temporary ability from Devour. Martin moved fast, flipping the holy book but stopped because someone was faster. A gunshot. A bullet glowing faint blue light hit Pudge between its eyebrows. The damage interrupted Pudge's next move, and Fenrir broke free and escaped. If he'd taken that hit, even with Life Chain it wouldn't have felt good. Aisha's strike did more than rescue him. After the bullet hit, it shattered into chilling frost that enveloped Pudge. Frost bullet, slow movement 25%, constitution check every 10 seconds. Fail equals 2-second freeze, with the note that the slow value and freeze duration depended on target strength. Pudge's movement visibly dropped. After the close call, Fenrir became even more cautious, no longer approaching easily, choosing to circle and distract while Aisha handled the main attack. Although Pudge was powerful, its mind seemed dull, ignoring Aisha, whose aura was rising again in the distance and continuing to chase Fenrir in front. With reduced movement, Pudge couldn't catch the four-legged Fenrir. Pudge was furious. From the head on its abdomen and the dense suture lines, a quiet green gas rapidly shot out, covering 5 meters around it, and it could move with the cloud. Fenrir's speed visibly slowed in the dim mist. An iron chain accompanied by clattering sounds flew toward Fenrir, the timing perfect, the speed terrifying. Fenrir didn't have time to dodge. The giant wolf was wrapped fiercely around the waist by the chain, contracting. As Pudge's left arm twitched, Fenrir was already in front of Pudge's chest. The giant wolf at 1.5 meters at the shoulder appeared as small as a puppy in front of Pudge. The cold wind from the falling cleaver could be felt even by me at the entrance. But I wasn't worried. Fenrir wasn't unprepared, and he adjusted his posture the moment the chain loosened. Self-healing talent and a trade damage style meant Fenrir knew which part to take the hit on. He had to test Pudge's strength, and at this intensity, injuries were unavoidable. With Life Chain, there was no life-threatening danger. The fault tolerance was extremely high. The moment the cleaver touched him, I vaguely saw golden chains. The bone cleaver sank into bone. The moment Fenrir was hit, my own vitality drained rapidly. I glanced at Fenrir. He looked disheveled, but his combat power was intact. The life chain had forcibly dispersed and transferred his injuries to all of us. Seeing Pudge's powerful strike was nothing more than that. Fenrir regained his composure and circled, seizing chances to land hits. When Pudge had struck him with the cleaver, he counterattacked, and the feeling was completely different from his first attack on the head, leading him to guess Pudge had activated the active block of flesh accumulation. By then, Aisha's second shot was fully charged. A bullet shot out. Armor-piercing bullet, ignored armor defense, dealt full physical damage. This time she aimed at the human head on Pudge's abdomen. The white bone spell from that head was too threatening and had to be eliminated first. The bullet was extremely fast and Pudge couldn't dodge, but its perception was keen, and the moment the gun fired, a red light flashed across its body and it activated the active block of flesh accumulation again. The head on its abdomen instantly became a bloody mess, white bone fragments visibly falling. Pudge roared in pain and fury and flung the iron chain again, this time at Aisha in the distance. She sensed the throw simultaneously and dodged. Without other crowd control or surprise, the chain was very difficult to land. Of course, if the target were me, I wouldn't have been able to dodge. The gap in strength was too great. By now, Pudge's skills had all been used, its behavior pattern thoroughly understood. Even so, defeating it remained extremely difficult. The 2 gunshot wounds on its body were healing visibly. What would be fatal wounds for other creatures were minor to Pudge. The heads weren't even vital points. Massive body and terrifying regen made it practically immortal. "Go," I said, drawing the bow and nocking an arrow. The protagonist of this battle was always going to be Martin, the one who wielded Holy Light. As my arrow struck Pudge's body, a holy light descended from the sky and completely enveloped Pudge's mountain-like flesh. Boundless black mist ascended. Mournful screams emanated. After the holy light dissipated, the toxic mist around Pudge thinned out, and its originally full body deflated by quite a bit. It didn't have the miraculous instant kill effect of the believers, but the damage from this single holy light healing far exceeded the combined work of Aisha and Fenrir. And Martin's holy light healing had no cooldown to speak of. One holy light after another fell. The poisonous mist around Pudge dissipated, its body even more pockmarked. Black mist continuously rising. Clearly heavily injured. After releasing 5 holy lights in a row, Martin closed his holy book and stopped moving. I asked him why he wasn't continuing. Martin's smile didn't shift as he answered me. He was out of mana. I was stunned, then realized. Martin's machine gun spell casting had amazed me into forgetting that he was still only a level 1 elite. Even with epic items and a hero's foundation, that was the floor. He told me the stitched monster's self-healing was temporarily suppressed and the rest was up to me, then closed his holy book and walked out of the space. A mage without mana was worse than a dog. After that many heavy blows on Pudge, it was better to avoid its edge. Life Chain could share damage, but the pain couldn't be shared. With Heaven's Grace's 5th shot, the stitched monster's mountain of a body swayed a few more times and collapsed. The system stacked prompts. Killed stitched monster Pudge level 15, 500 experience, 100 light temple reputation. My level to 4. Fenrir leveled, Martin leveled twice. Martin had been the main force and almost caught up to me. I put away the bow and walked to Pudge's corpse. Even dead, the bolt pressed on me. Higher risk, higher reward. What kind of spoils would such a powerful creature drop? 3 different colored orbs of light scattered around its body. I gathered them and checked each. The first was book-shaped. Flesh Accumulation Skill Book. Purple Transcendent. Grants flesh accumulation requirement constitution above 50, or a recovery type talent or innate constitution above 10, with the note that forcing its use couldn't guarantee what I'd turn into. The skill, passive, each kill could absorb the creature's flesh essence to raise all attributes except spirit, once per day. Active wall of flesh envelops self in a flesh aura that blocked all damage from all sources. Value constitution divided by 3. 3 seconds. 10-second cooldown. Brother Pudge, you were my good brother. I hadn't expected Pudge's signature to be the first loot, a skill that grew indefinitely with an active that could block any damage, even noble true damage that ignored armor and magic resistance. When Aisha's armor-piercing round had hit the wall, even that had been weakened. I didn't assign the book yet and went on. Pudge's hook, special equipment offhand, blue excellent, strength above 20 required, attached skill chain that threw a chain to entangle a target and drag it in front of me, with the note to mind the strength comparison or get pulled over instead. The third item was a thick book with bold lettering, Necromancy Essentials on the Creation of Stitched Monsters. Readable, spirit above 10 required, 12 hours of reading for a chance to comprehend the method of creating stitched monsters. I was stunned. It really was a book meant for reading. From the description, it needed deep understanding and a foundation, not the system shortcut a skill book or blueprint offered. No one in our group could read it. Silently, I put it back into my pack, already earmarked for tomorrow's mutation. After the kill, the space went silent again, only the holy lightstone's steady glow. I asked Martin its purpose. He didn't hold back, said the light temple's holy water gained healing and purifying power by being soaked in the holy lightstone, and that the stone could be inlaid into equipment to imbue holy light power. The two most common uses. I asked whether anyone could take the holy lightstone away without prematurely opening the rift. His smile froze. Then he answered that it was possible if someone proficient in holy light could replace it and continuously suppress the rift around the clock. I dismissed the idea immediately. 3 or 4 days remained and Martin was too important to leave babysitting a stone. The time read past 1, more than half the day gone. The underground space fully explored. I called the team out for territory rest. After an intense battle, everyone was exhausted. Just as I was about to leave, I remembered the undead believers couldn't be harvested because their race was human. The stitched monster wasn't human. I went back. The moment my hand touched the flesh, a system prompt agreed, stitched monster Pudge's corpse blue, harvestable. I chose to harvest. The corpse turned into white light and disappeared, leaving an item. Stitched monster's soul essence, blue excellent, carries the soul power of a stitched monster. Can create more, can also be purified into a pure soul essence to improve the aptitude of low aptitude units, with a friendly note that it saw me. I sighed at how the light orbs had nearly led me to miss it. Soul essence improving aptitude meant the subjects I'd painstakingly cultivated wouldn't fall behind because of bad rolls. My early investment wouldn't be wasted. I asked Martin if he could purify it. I wasn't planning to keep this essence to create a stitched monster. Who knew how long I'd wait for someone who could read that book? Besides, my territory was blessed by holy light and favored by nature. No place for evil things like that. Martin said the power of holy light clashed with the soul essence and currently he couldn't perfectly purify it without losing its power. Currently meant possible later, I asked. At least until he reached level 30. I told him he was well informed and asked for other methods. Martin pondered, then suggested placing it in the moonwell to purify with the power of the moon goddess. I was delighted. I'd asked casually and he'd actually had a solution. I let everyone out of the mural space and closed the mural behind us. To prevent the creatures on the other side from coming over early, I'd reluctantly given up a precious extraordinary gem. Nothing must go wrong here in these 92 hours. The way back was uneventful. By 1:30 we were back in the territory enjoying the bonfire. 3.5 hours before dark. The smell of meat already drifted from the dining hall. I laid the spoils out and considered distribution. Make the best use of everything, I muttered. Giving to villagers was like using it myself. None of the rare items on the ground were for me. Flesh accumulation went to Fenrir first. I wanted it, a lifesaver that grew infinitely, but it would be a long time before I met the conditions. Didn't fit my best use principle. Besides me, only Fenrir and Martin met the requirements. And what kind of life-saving skill did a backline holy priest need? Fenrir's self-healing matched perfectly. He thanked me, fanatical that he could master an extraordinary great skill in his lifetime. The system reported his loyalty up to 99, marked diehard, with the note that diehard subordinates would not easily betray me and would regard my commands above all else. The prompt made me curious what 100 was. Aisha showed no apparent difference. Martin at 65 was already obedient. I dropped it. Pudge's hook went to Fenrir too. Even less controversial. He was excited beyond reason. In his view, he'd contributed the least and was getting most of the gains, like a lying down winner voted MVP. He told me he didn't deserve it. I told him to take it. This was for the territory's development. He swore everything for me and the territory. I looked at Martin. He'd played the biggest role, and although someone of his strength might not care for spoils, the formalities had to be observed. As I drafted words in my head, the signs of manipulation and grand promises were too obvious. Martin was a holy priest who could outplay him in the game of faith. I deleted the script and told him this time it was all thanks to him. He thanked me for the praise, then asked to borrow the Stitched Monsters book. Very interested. I handed over the book with a strange expression, evil aura pouring off it. He said he knew it was the Necromancy Essentials, and took it directly. I warned him not to purify it, since I still had use for it, though I added he didn't need to worry. I wouldn't study evil power. He told me I was mistaken, power made no distinction between good and evil. And not to worry, he was just looking. Hearing that from a holy priest felt odd, but I relaxed. I didn't want a fanatic in my territory who'd purify this and that. Speaking of purification, I almost forgot. I went to a moon well, took out the soul essence, sank it to the bottom. No reaction, but the well's mystical properties only appeared at night, and Martin had said elemental conflict meant time. I went to the dining hall to eat. Chewing tiger meat, my mind was on the map I'd taken from the Black Robe Believer. I thought it would resemble the Grey Robe map at most as an integrated version, but one look shocked me. This wasn't a surface map. All the areas marked were underground, a subterranean network of this region. I even found the iron mine I'd occupied on day 2. If the map was accurate, that mine might not be so simple. On the map, near my mine sat another underground space clearly labeled Manastone Mine. Manastone. With this, my portable heat sources could finally show their worth. I wolfed lunch and set off again with the 3. I traveled the road to the mine many times by now and was familiar with it. Soon we arrived. I motioned for everyone to spread out and search for entrances to the underground. After a full half hour, all 3 reported back. No other entrance found. The only way down was through the mine I'd already occupied. Puzzled, I suddenly thought of the Believers' gathering place. That had been a hidden world too. Could my mine have another secret? At the familiar mine, I told everyone my guess. I called Ji-sam and Ji-sa over too, who'd been mining here for 2 days and were the most familiar, and asked if there were any anomalies. I didn't expect much. If there was anything serious, I'd have already known. Ji-sam stammered that he'd discovered some anomalies this morning while mining. Seeing my displeasure, he quickly added that he was planning to report it tonight on return. No concealment intended. I told him not to let it happen again. In future, any abnormal situation must be reported immediately. Then I told him to lead the way. Time was pressing, so I called back the scattered mercenary group and followed Ji-sam deeper. It was an abandoned tunnel, the end blocked by rubble. Ji-sam said he'd heard a sound from the other side once, scared him to death. I waved him back to work, and at my signal Fenrir stepped forward. After his confirmation, the tunnel did connect to another. Ji-sam returned with Ji-sa, swinging pickaxes and sweating. As the next strike landed, a cold wind came from the other side. Then a system prompt arrived. Newbie protection period prompt. I was about to enter a dangerous area of the Manastone mine, occupied by 2 major underground races, and once I entered I'd be attacked by both sides. Suggested challenge level 15. A dangerous area suggested level 15. I waited. Combined with the Believers' gathering place, the challenge level was what was needed to clear the area, not the level of every creature inside. Passive attack stitched monsters probably weren't counted. The 5-level jump was actually a qualitative leap from tier 0 to tier 1. The stitched monster proved that. Our bullets were spent, Fenrir's ultimate had been used, our combat power was weakened, and gains hadn't been digested yet. Only Martin was in good condition, but I didn't know if the underground races were undead. Still, the mine looked far larger on the map than the Believers' gathering place. No way to fully explore today. No risk of meeting the strongest creatures. I decided to explore the periphery and clear small monsters. Let's take a look, I waved. Fenrir, with a tank's self-awareness, was first through the gap. His voice came back. No danger found. I stepped in with Aisha and Martin. The mine had been abandoned a long time. Dim, only bright light from the path behind us. Martin, I said, and a ball of light hovered up, his illumination spell. Fenrir had night vision and had already spotted something on the wall. A mana device. Mana mining lamp. Mana tool. Simple device. 1 mana stone supports it for 3 months. Abandoned for at least 3 months by the description, I approached and touched the mana stone in the lamp, and it turned to powder. I retracted my judgment. This iron was more than 3 months old, at least 30 years. After recruiting Martin, I'd asked about mana stones. Depleted ones didn't crumble like this. This was the power of time. The rust on the lighting device proved it. The mine had scattered things on the ground. Rails, mine carts, mana stones. The carts were dilapidated and lying down. A few mana stones around them dust-covered. Only the rails were covered in mysterious patterns and a faint glow circulated through them, resisting time's erosion. I packed the mine carts into my pack, repairable with iron at the blacksmith. Intact mine carts were quite useful. I didn't expect a network where carts ran automatically, but even polar people pushing stone-loaded carts would be good. I mobilized everyone to pick up the scattered carts and mana stones. Counted up, the harvest was abundant. Just by picking up trash, I had 11 mana stones and 7 damaged carts. The rails were embedded and unmovable, but once I cleared out the mine and could mine mana stones, the rails would come into use. Let's keep moving forward. The space connected to 7 or 8 other tunnels, and I picked one at random. Fenrir led, the rest followed. To avoid getting lost on the way back, his shadow wolf urinated in place. Walking and marking like that, before long a quiet rustle came from up ahead. A dungeon rat demon. Fenrir and the Shadow Wolf shared vision in a small range. We approached. The source was two creatures with rat heads and human bodies, like large rats magnified several times, walking upright. From perennial subterranean existence, the rat demons were less than a meter tall, with slender limbs perfect for narrow shafts. Their smell was sharp. The moment we approached, they bolted into the depths and vanished. Fenrir, night vision, gave chase. He returned holding two corpses, reporting he had not failed me. No harvestable prompt appeared. I wondered if the system didn't provide collection for humanoid or somewhat intelligent creatures. As Fenrir tossed the bodies, a stone rolled out, a mana stone with clear teeth marks. I couldn't sit still. These rat demons gnawed mana stones, and I'd long considered this vein my own. Encroachment on my private property. Quicken the pace, I told them. I couldn't imagine how many more were gnawing through this sprawling mine. We accelerated but kept the team together. No scattering for efficiency. Aisha killed a rat demon level 4, 10 experience. Fenrir killed one level 6, 15, both leveled to 7. I checked the time, 4 in the afternoon, and had a plan. About time to withdraw, half an hour back to the iron mine and a bit more to the territory. I called the team to clear the battlefield and decided to return tomorrow. 41 mana stones from the rat demons. The rat demons we'd encountered were level 4 through 8, easy mowing, partly because the map let me avoid main shafts in large spaces. The group followed the Shadow Wolf back. As we approached the iron mine, my tense heart relaxed. Only rat demons so far, but the protection prompt had said 2 underground races inhabited this mine. A wolf howl came from nearby. Damn it, I cursed. The Shadow Wolf leading the way had been attacked in stealth mode the first time it had been detected. Yesterday, the wolf had walked face to face past a level 10 believer without being detected. Fenrir stood beside me looking very serious and reminded me that this was definitely a formidable enemy, the wolf, and he had lost contact. I knew this couldn't be avoided. We had to face it head on, unless I wanted to spend the night in the mine. We bypassed the last shaft and returned to the initial mine. The room was empty. Only the Shadow Wolf lay disemboweled in a pool of blood. My heart sank. Had it already retreated, or I subtly shifted my feet a bit closer to Aisha? Feeling her faint natural fragrance, the thorns on my back lessened considerably. My heart calmed. A creature hidden in the shadows whose killing intent I could perceive couldn't be that strong. What was there to be afraid of? Dragging this out wouldn't work. I gave Fenrir a meaningful look. He understood, slowed his steps, and fell a few meters behind us three. The presence in the dark was patient, still. Just as Aisha and I and Martin passed through the passage and returned to the original iron mine, the hidden hunter finally moved. The ground suddenly cracked open and sharp rock spikes shot up from underground like blades. Fenrir had no time to react. His body propelled violently upward into midair. A creature resembling a scarab beetle, sharp bone spurs covering its limb joints, followed close, 2 forelimbs swinging in a cross at Fenrir in midair. Since we'd been the bait exposing a weakness, we were prepared. Fenrir activated his newly acquired flesh wall, endured the rock spikes without serious injury, retained enough strength in midair to keep his throat and head out of the kill zone. When he landed heavily, Aisha's arrow arrived. The arrow, carrying the full power of a 3-second charge, cut through flying dust and accurately struck the beetle's compound eye. I had no weapon and could only watch from the side, but I wasn't too nervous. This was only a level 10 elite, and a creature skilled in assassination, not sustained combat. Dungeon Beetle, level 10. Insectoid, elite, green excellent, strength 19, agility 34, constitution 29, spirit 25, talent perception that detected cloaked targets within a 3-meter radius, skills earth spike, retaliation, burrow. Earth spike condensed rock spikes that pierced and threw the target into the air with stun on landing. Retaliation entered stealth, increased movement speed, and doubled the damage of the breaking attack. Burrow could go underground and quickly restore status. The key was preventing escape. With both stealth and burrow, this thing was too mobile, and beyond the loot loss, its skills were a fatal threat to the polar people mining. The whole territory's development would slow. This dungeon beetle had to die today. Subordinates obeyed. Fenrir sprang up with a carp flip, let out a howl that triggered Wolf Howl, and charged the spiky beetle hand to hand. With Fenrir engaging, Aisha charged in peace. 1 second, 2, 3. Sensing the rising killing intent, the beetle shoved Fenrir away and jabbed both forelimbs into the ground. Earth spike. But the target wasn't Fenrir. The spike pierced straight at Aisha. As it was about to send her flying, she shifted her feet and dodged. A flicker of joy in the beetle's compound eyes. Dodging didn't matter. What it wanted was the moment. Its forelimbs thrashed and dug a passage. As it was about to burrow and escape, an arrow pierced the air. Moving shot, Aisha could maintain a charged shot even in motion. The 4-second charged arrow carried terrifying destruction and shot into its head. Dark green blood gushed. Even so, the insect's vitality kept it swaying, trying to submerge. I was helpless. Aisha out of reach. Martin indifferent. Fenrir exerted his strength. The grappling hook on his right arm shot out and entangled the beetle. Heavily wounded, it was powerless and was dragged in front of him. His left claw plunged into the head, pulverizing the brain. Killed dungeon beetle level 10. 50 experience. I let out a sigh of relief. It almost got away. The time, 11 minutes until nightfall. I ran to the corpse. The beetle dropped no light clusters, only collection. Spiky forelimb 2, dungeon beetle egg 6, carapace 1, meat 18. Time was tight. I stuffed everything into my pack to examine later. Then I reblocked the passage between the iron mine and the mana stone mine and rushed back to the territory. Time 1706, ambient negative 57, the world tree standing out across the vast white in the distance. Almost there. My first time outside the territory after nightfall. After dark, the temperature plummeted. In 5 or 6 minutes, it had dropped from negative 34 to negative 57, and now negative 58. If not for the level ups, the thick tiger fur coat, and Martin's holy light protection, I'd have turned into an ice pop. The polar people were more cold accustomed, but only by day. After nightfall, they were already trembling. Fenrir had the highest physique and said he could last another 10 minutes. Ice crystals had formed on Aisha's eyelashes, hands clasped to her chest, freezing too. Martin's robe had cold-resistant properties and showed no visible effect. Hunting at night was beyond me at this stage. Even with the portable heat source coming, it could lift negative 30 to negative 10, but couldn't lift negative 60 to negative 40. Night hunting needed leveling up first. Stronger physique, then environment wouldn't matter. The Lord is back. The Lord is back. Cheers came from afar, interrupting my thoughts. Outside the territory, G-Il and several polar people were eagerly waiting. They were the ones who least wanted anything to happen to me. A good lord wasn't easy to find. And after finally getting full meals and meat every day, they didn't want to go back to hard times. Back in the territory, I wished I could dump myself in the bonfire. Nearly 10 minutes by the fire and I finally recovered. While waiting for dinner, I checked the beetle spoils. The egg first. Dungeon beetle egg, blue excellent. Can hatch a dungeon beetle, the note saying place in warm underground areas with earth elemental crystals to increase the success rate. My eyes lit up. Crowd control, stealth, life-saving. The insect race matured extremely quickly. A successful hatch met near immediate combat force. Unlike that thing, I muttered, glancing at the constant temperature box still incubating the shadow tiger egg with no signs of life after nearly 2 days. I went to the nursery, dug a small hole a few dozen centimeters deep, placed the 6 insect eggs and 1 primary earth elemental crystal in. We'd see which hatched first. The forelimbs could craft daggers, but I had no high-level blueprints, and standard weapons would waste them. Same for the carapace, possibly stealth equipment with a skilled blacksmith. Both went into storage. The meat I'd try tonight, time for a change from tiger. G-Il, extra meal tonight. I called the captain over and handed him the beetle meat. Then I went to the market. The Moonwell water I'd listed was still popular. 5 portions for basic resources had sold out. My Moonspring water purchased 195 wood after fee, another for 97 stone, the rest for blueprints and rare items, had people frantically PMing. I opened one. Hey, what a coincidence. Han Zheng. Once I'd replied to a private message, I'd keep receiving messages from that sender. Han Zheng was anxious. His messages came in a flurry. My tiger meat was really effective. I wasn't telling the truth. Did I still have Moonspring water? The item was precious. Why didn't I raise the price? If I didn't want to ruin my reputation, he could be the bad guy and pay a 20% premium at 360 wood per unit, as much as I had. 30%, his lowest healing items would become common and lose value. Then begging me to stop the silent treatment. To make light wound healing potion, he'd lost his house, his family ruined by him. My Moonspring water more effective and cheaper was killing him. Then admitting defeat and begging me to raise the price. I thought, is he under that much pressure? Why is he acting like a lunatic? I checked the market's transaction records for the main materials. Han Zheng had bought them in bulk yesterday at an average of 300 wood, and the light wound healing potion had sold 12 bottles at an average of 180. Alright, you were the true king of charity, but had the market saturated this fast? I'd only listed single-digit units against nearly 10,000 lords, and these were consumables. Unless there was a competitor, I entered the keyword healing in the market. Several pages popped up. Bandage, bandage, bandage. I understood. Bandages plus Moonspring water had locked the price. The potion was middle, quick on minor injuries, only alleviating severe. Severe injury people went for Moonspring water. Minor injury people used bandages. Still a market but no monopoly. Served him right. I switched to private chat and typed call me daddy. Han Zheng replied in less than a second. Daddy. Hey, good evening, obedient son. He asked. Now that we were family, where had my Moonspring water come from and how much did I have left? Could he afford it? I told him he was too late. It was all gone. I added in my mind, today's is gone. Gone, I don't believe you, he muttered, but sent that he looked forward to our next cooperation. Han Zheng immediately modified his 3 bottles, raising the price from 90 stone or 30 iron or 2 primary elemental crystals to 130 stone or 50 iron or 3. He told himself he didn't care true or false. He'd raise the price as a sign of respect. His move. My turn. As night fell, most lords were idle and sensitive to market fluctuations. In the regional channel, someone had already noticed. Han Zheng, you greedy merchant, still raising prices. Just wait for Great God Gang Yu's Moonspring water tomorrow. What if he doesn't list tomorrow? Could Han Zheng have inside info? Quick, Gang Yu, will there be Moonspring water tomorrow? Han Zheng looked at the chat and smiled, then bought 1 stone from the market for 100 wood. The rhythm was orchestrated by him paying someone to lead. If I didn't respond, his potions could sell at a high price. If I did, he'd at least know I still had stock. I didn't know about Han Zheng's many schemes. I was happily picking blueprints. Recipe for spicy rabbit meat. White common, after use grants the dish. Recommended for those with cooking skills. Effect depending on ingredients and skill. With the spice list calling for rabbit meat, chili, Sichuan peppercorns, ginger, white sugar, and clear water with rabbit meat and chili essential. After consumption, the dish increased cold resistance for 30 minutes and granted constitution +1. Good, eating spicy to resist the cold. I'd take it. Fine iron arrow production blueprint was good too. Although I didn't use them much, my advanced bow used invisible arrows, but selling finished arrows was always more profitable than dumping raw iron. The last was the high-priced skill book. Explosive Fireball skill book, green excellent. Requirement spirit at least 10. After charging 3 seconds, released an explosive fireball dealing 220% spell damage, with a 5-second burning effect of 20% spell power per second. Cooldown 48. Mana cost 50. Strong, but the requirement was high for current lords, and I exchanged 5 units of Moonspring water plus a Shadow Tiger egg for it. Both sides satisfied. The seller got resources plus a pet egg, better than the skill book. For me, 5 units was a few hours of production, and Aisha had said the egg's aura was weak. Only a pet have hatched, otherwise food. Huge profit too. I learned the skill immediately. No mutating tomorrow. Mutations were unstable. The medical kit had turned into a recruitment scroll. 10 spirit, my attributes just hit 10.04 with the level ups and Lord's powers 13%. Lost explosive fireball skill book. Gained skill explosive fireball. 2 free slots remaining. Next, verify my hypothesis. Almost certainly combo could trigger spells, but facts had to speak. I pulled out the white grade staff and focused. Explosive fireball lit and dimmed on my panel. Something drained continuously from inside me. A scorching aura began to condense at the staff's tip. Out of the corner of my eye, a phantom formed beside me, its staff also condensing. 3 seconds later, 2 orange-red basketball-sized fireballs formed. The 2 flew forward at moderate speed, and I muttered whether they could even hit anyone, but the next second both reached max range and exploded mid-air. Flames sprayed outward in a ring, and even from nearly 30 meters away I felt a scorching gust. The snow at the explosion melted instantly, steam rising, dirt flying. I took back what I'd said. Explosive Fireball lived up to its name, 10-meter kill zone at least. The terrifying power left me with mixed feelings. Spells could combo and the destruction was great. But if a low-level spell had this power, what about later? What about my subordinates after 1 spell? Killing 1,000 at the cost of 800 of my own. If I didn't understand, ask. Native mages must have a solution. Martin, I said, I have a question. He pondered, then said this involved a new concept, skill mastery. He explained that although skill books gave us skills directly, they were fixed, rigid as a predetermined program. The fireball I'd just cast required a 3-second chant I couldn't skip, and I couldn't control range, power, cooldown. I controlled only when to cast in the target. He paused. A dazzling holy light appeared in his hand, transformed into a sword, and slashed at me. I felt only a slight burning sensation and a faint sting. Truly top-tier powerhouses had mastered their skills, could use them at will, no harming teammates just like the holy light punishment he'd just used. His words opened a door for me. I asked whether all skills had mastery, including passives, including Fenrir's flesh accumulation. All should. He said he didn't know what flesh accumulation would gain at full mastery, but he speculated Flesh Wall could achieve partial protection, reduced energy loss, enhanced local strength. In gaming terms, increased defense, reduced cooldown, increased duration, even on-off at will. The question I cared about most, how does one truly master a skill? Martin had a draft ready. This was a domain only heroes began to access, even he was just starting. For now, I could only use the dumb way, use it more often. The skill book had already engraved the essence of the skill onto my soul. The dumb way I understood. Practice. I had plenty of time and the long night was perfect, but groundwork first. I checked mana. 151 of 200, several minutes since the cast and I'd recovered only 1 point. The natural rate was too slow. I went to the market and filtered by mana and recovery. Empty. Better to make than buy. I modified the note under my listed Moonspring water, seeking rare blueprints, materials, and items. Urgently need potion blueprints or items providing mana recovery. Mage skill books also discussable. The confidence of holding a dominant market position. While eating, I opened the market. I planned to acquire some basic resources. Plenty of mana stones today, but portable heat sources also needed primary fire elemental crystals, and dungeon beetle hatching needed primary earth crystals, possibly more than 1 or 2, so stocking up. Lost Iron 5 gained primary fire elemental crystal 1, paid 2 wood handling fee. Lost wood 120, gained 1 fire crystal, paid 6 wood. After a series of trades, my fire crystals reached 28 and earth 16. The market's elemental crystals were almost entirely bought out by me. Should be enough for now. I closed the market and went to the crafting table to start manually crafting portable heat sources. A flash of light, materials gone. Manufacturing in progress, 11 minutes 58 seconds. After the countdown, lost 3 iron, 1 mana stone, 1 primary fire elemental crystal, gained 1 portable heat source. I toyed with the Iron Man chest reactor-like item, marveling at the system. Red patterns and a black mana stone embedded. I attached it and pressed activation. Heat swept through my whole body, walking in large movements didn't affect it. Comfortable. I switched off. This thing consumed 1 mana stone a day at full power. I'd make 3 more, 12 minutes each. The polar people could wait. I had to practice tonight too. Nearly an hour later, I had 4 portable heat sources. 1 extra. I messaged Tan Chungu through private chat. Brother Tan, list any wood for sale. He was in public channel, saw the PM, obeyed. Lord Gang Yu wants to exchange 1 portable heat source and 3 mana stones for 1 wood. Do you agree? He'd already found mana stones. Tan Chungu was inwardly shocked. Only one day I'd acquired something he hadn't even heard of, and I was giving him 1 for free. He declined, told me he wasn't worthy. I told him to take it. With this, his exploration range expanded, and if he found blueprints he didn't need later to remember me. He thanked me as Brother Gang and said he wouldn't be polite. Lost 1 portable heat source and 3 mana stones, gained 1 wood, paid 15 wood handling fee. Surprisingly high, I estimated it was a system limit on strong individuals helping weaker ones excessively. I started organizing the day's work. Tomorrow's warmth solved. The territory expanded after the level 3 bonfire and the 4th and 5th moon wells were arranged. Today's resources tallied, trades handled. Oh, right, Dungeon Beetle. I went back to the nursery, redug the incubation spot, and placed 5 more primary earth elemental crystals at once. 6 eggs, 6 crystals reasonable. My gaze fell on the constant temperature box. If this shadow tiger didn't hatch soon, it would only ever be raised as a kitten. If you don't come out, I'll stew you. I tapped the box in threat. Time to begin the long night life. I walked to the world tree, picked all the ice crystal fruit before leaving. A long night needed adjustments. When I entered world tree room 000, Aisha had been training there a long time. She stopped and bowed. I was curious. I hadn't called her. She explained she'd also heard Martin's skill proficiency talk. Deep determination in her clear eyes, words she hadn't spoken. She was the first warrior under the Lord, but in 2 days the Lord had gained 2 more, and even Fenrir, originally weaker, was now stronger. As royalty of the Silver Moon Elves, she had pride. She could not allow herself to fall behind my pace. Storm infused her body. Her speed reached its limit. Wind step. At high speed, she drew the bow and notched an arrow, holding without firing. Charge shot. Use it often, practice diligently. Martin's words. Room 000 was extremely spacious, plenty for several practitioners. She was diligent. I was happy to let her be. I watched a while and began my own practice. After a few explosive fireballs, I gained nothing except tiring myself. But I wasn't discouraged. Practice took more than a day. I was only level 4, only 10 spirit. Accumulated experience might yield more later. After exhausting mana, I sat cross-legged, admiring the beauty beside me. Glad Aisha was with me, otherwise waiting for mana would be agonizing. Cast, wait, cast, wait. After dozens of repetitions, a dizzy spell hit. Excessive mental exertion. Casting consumed mana and mental energy too. The system's help limited my control to target selection, but dozens still added up at my spirit. Aisha was full of vigor, though her coat was off and sweat dripped. Training wasn't easy for her either. Rest early, good night, Aisha. I went back to my room but didn't fall asleep immediately. My mind racing about tomorrow's mutation, the Mana Stone mine, with the Shadow Tiger and Beetle's hatch. Dawn, day 4. I was awakened by a system announcement. In view of the fact that all surviving lords had completed a kill, the territory ranking was activated. This was a regional ranking. Settlement on the night the novice protection period ended. The territory ranking comprehensively evaluated population, resources, buildings, combat power, and the Lord's personal strength. Settlement rewards: 4th through 10th got a green tier 1 recruitment scroll, plus green building blueprint, plus green self-selected weapon gift box. 2nd and 3rd got blue versions. 1st got purple. I skipped to the live leaderboard. 1st, Gang Yu, 191,400. 2nd, Han Zhong, 202. 3rd, Boji Hyun, 168. Overwhelming, crushing. I didn't look further. The gap was too large. My world tree was the most extreme growth potential bid in the region. As long as I didn't die, first place was already firmly mine. The chat erupted with a mix of awe and disbelief. Ko Yang-su told everyone to skip the rewards and look at the regional first place. Tong Jinwoo called it outrageous and complained he only had 32. Ku Chunbong quoted my entry with a poetic line about gazing at the moon in a well. Hyun-du said he hadn't seen anyone higher. Tang Jingyo said heroes of the world were as numerous as carp crossing the river, and the world channel still had 4-digit and 5-digit territories. Gang Jinwoo griped that people on the world channel didn't believe it and insisted we were lying. I had nothing to do with the clamor. I was already by the bonfire beginning today's mutation. The first item, the militia training manual. Unstable mutation taking effect. The militia training manual undergoing positive mutation. My item militia training manual mutated into beginner elemental spell insight. Today's positive count 0. Today's unstable count 2. Spell insight. My first thought was speechlessness, not joy. Could I understand it? Could I even use this thing? Although I could freely cast explosive fireball, that was entirely based on a skill book. I hoped it wasn't like that. I checked. Beginner elemental spell insight. Purple transcendent. A one-time consumable recording a legendary expert's research on several low-level spells including fireball, explosive fireball, chain fireball. After use randomly optimizes the model of one spell skill, limited to beginner spells. With the note, with fireball in hand, the world is mine. What kind of mage are you if you can't cast fireball? My action stirred a storm in Martin. What kind of ability changed the essence of an item? He noticed my casualness and Aisha and Fenrir's accustomedness, which meant the Lord's ability had been demonstrated before, not a one-time thing. His perpetually smiling face stiffened slightly. Martin's loyalty up to 68. I didn't pay attention. The reason I mutated in front of subordinates was to show off. I used the insight directly. It transformed into a ray of light and entered my body. Lost beginner elemental spell insight. My explosive fireball was optimized. Charging time 3 to 2 seconds. Damage 220 to 280%. Cooldown 48 to 30 seconds. Mana 50 to 40. All-around enhancement, worthy of a legendary mage's insight. Unstable mutation taking effect. Ice crystal fruit undergoing random mutation. My item Ice Crystal Fruit mutated into Ice Crystal Fruit Tree. Today's positive 0, today's unstable 1. Rejuvenation. An egg becoming a chicken that lay eggs. Divine Doctor. I put the sapling away very satisfied. In one day yesterday the territory had consumed nearly 30 meat. Plans changed, the third mutation target also changed. Unstable mutation. Ice Crystal Fruit randomly mutating. Ice Crystal Fruit mutated into primary ice element crystal.